like to call to order the regular school committee meeting of the Cohasset Public Schools on Wednesday, September 21st, 2016 at 7 p.m. As a reminder, all regular school committee meetings are televised and recorded. I'd like to do a call to order, please.
Present Barbara Steffen. Present Katie Dugan.
Present Gina Stino.
Present Ellen Mar. Present Amanda Sani.
Okay, and then anyone who would care to join us, we will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first item on the agenda is invitation to speak. Does anyone have any comments? Then we will move on to the regular agenda, which includes the approval of the warrant. And I did come in and look over warrant 17-05S, and everything looked in order. So could I have a motion to approve warrant 17-05S?
So moved.
So that's Mrs. Dugan. May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Roll call, please.
I, Barbara Steffen. I, Katie Dugan.
I, Gina Stino.
I abstain. Ellen Mar. I, Amanda Sani.
Okay. And the next item on the agenda is the finance section.
Very good. You have in front of you some exhibits 1, 2, and 3. Exhibit 1, this happened to be the order that they were put in the packet, is with revolving funds and grants. It's frankly too early in the year to be able to tell much about the revolving funds, other than the money is coming in. In terms of grants, you see 3 grants there where we have awards. When this was done, which was the end of August, those were the only 3 awards that we had. We fully expect to get the rest, a formal notice by the end of this month on all of the grants. And in fact, on one of the grants, the 240 grant, 274 grant, excuse me, the SPED grant, the 240 grant, we got permission to spend money.
Yes.
Yes, so we got permission to spend money in September, so we actually paid some salaries. And I can tell you that under the Title I grant, we actually got our first disbursement this month and have paid some salaries out of that as well.
Oh, great.
So the grants seem to be fine. The question came up last month, and just to make it clear, when we ended the fiscal year, you saw 3 accounts that showed deficits in them that were grants. In the month of July, we actually got the payment for the previous fiscal year, so those deficits were wiped out. We ended it without owing money or having them owe us any money. So that turned out just fine.
Very
I have a
good.
quick question.
Sure.
Sorry. You want to go first, Barb?
Go ahead,
Sure.
Barb.
This is very broad, but so those four SPED grants, all of them should come in roughly into the forecast amounts? Okay.
Correct.
Great.
We have every reason to expect that the entitlement, the amounts that have been allotted to the district are in order with what was projected.
Okay.
And the only other one that's on there that is a little different is the special support that we get for the resource officer.
Right.
And I've received a formal letter saying that that will come forward once we send in the paperwork. And as of Friday, Chris Senior sent me the information that I need to complete the form.
Okay. I do have a question about that, just a quick one. We have a grant
Yep.
for the money. Does his payroll get processed by us or by the police department?
It is processed by the police department, but the money comes out of the grant.
Right, no, I get where the money comes from, I just,
He receives a paycheck that says Town of Cohasset Police Department as opposed to
okay. I was just
Town
curious,
of Cohasset School Department.
the things that pop in and out
Sure.
of my money.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up?
Yeah.
Just timing of the SPED grants, is this typical that they come in at this time of year too?
Anytime in
Like a
September,
little
Yeah.
sometimes early
Okay.
October.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Katie?
I just had a quick question on the kindergarten revolving account.
Sure.
I was just looking at the receipts for the full day kindergarten, and it felt a little bit low to me. but some of the monies could be in the opening balance in terms of when the payments came in. So I guess the question to you was, have we looked at whether we're on track in terms of, there was a deposit and then the first payment, I think of around $1,300 was due beginning of September.
I have not compared this year's receipts with last year's receipts.
Okay.
If I were to give you the number that was as of today as opposed to as of 31 August, it would be a larger number.
Yeah.
You know, how much larger that would be, I don't know, but I think we'll be talking tomorrow and I can give you that information.
Okay, that's great. And maybe the better time to ask, honestly, be asking the question is at the end of September when we've
Right.
given it, but I just
Mhm.
wanna stay focused on that particular one.
Katie, I don't know, but did you have last year's?
I didn't actually take the time to look at last year's receipts.
Last year's through 8/31, we were at 11,400 in receipts.
Okay.
Oh, so that's good, so we're
So-
at 40%.
So we're actually 4 times larger than that,
I
roughly.
figured it
round
was the
numbers.
$500 deposit times 80-something kids, right?
Yeah.
And then the rest of them come in,
Okay.
right? 'Cause is it a $500 deposit? Is that what it is? Is it
I don't
300?
Is a and again, a $300 deposit and the first payment of $1,350 due in September. So maybe I was jumping the gun in terms of the $1,350. We won't see that roll in until next month's.
And very few people pay all
In
at once.
advance.
Very few
You
people pay
can't,
all at once.
can you not, you can't, I guess you can pay all at once, but very few do, and then you can't ask for more than half of the kindergarten tuition before January 1st, is that right?
That's what we do.
I think it's like a state thing
I
that
think
you
it is a
can't
law.
ask for, okay.
I think it is a lot.
Okay.
And last year, we had some payments that really lagged. So,
We've had that discussion.
I'm sure you have.
Yes.
About how,
Great.
once we get into the year, we need to make sure that we remind people if they've been
Right.
a little slow to pay us.
Mhm.
And when we get to the next year, which is the second half of the academic year, to be sure to stay on top of it. We don't wanna have the same mad rush at the end of the year, which is what we had to collect the money. I mean, we ultimately did, but it took a lot more time and effort than we'd like to expend.
right.
So, but actually what's interesting on kindergarten is, I mean, we started with 11,000 more than the opening balance in last year, but we've also expended 10,621 through 8/31 this year against 2171. Were there shifts, like, I mean, school hadn't started last year, but you weren't here, and school hadn't started this year, 8/31.
You mean having expended?
Having expended, yeah.
Teacher payroll's coming early. That
Oh,
may
okay.
be-
That, okay.
Right.
Did you have another question, Barb?
Nope.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. And how about the transportation, please? Are those clicking along or?
Can we, are we done with the finance, or?
No, I'm
Oh,
just
okay.
looking at the line
Okay.
item
All
for
right,
student
sorry.
transportation,
Sorry.
so.
We have been collecting transportation fees, an awful lot in a short period of time.
Okay,
When it came to buses.
good.
We have not gone through to confirm who's paid and who hasn't.
Okay.
We haven't run the outstanding list.
Uh-huh. Okay. Just a little touch point on where we are. Okay. Anybody have any other questions on the finances?
Not on top, John, we're gonna go to the next page?
Next page.
Okay.
At this point in time, it's awfully early in the year. There's nothing on a large level that really stands out. When we start to look at some of the detail, we see some accounts that we will need to reallocate some money because we have some deficit. At this point, there's nothing that, again, that's jumping off the page. We feel comfortable with the salary budget that we have for the year, which is the biggest expense that we have. As I mentioned last month, we have some known areas that we're gonna have to be mindful of. Water happens to be one of them that is under budget based upon what we found, what we ended up spending last year in actual expenses. Now, I will tell you that I don't know if the water ban this year has affected our water use. for this quarter. So that's one of the things we'll have to look at.
It should have, because it was a complete water ban, so we shouldn't have been watering the fields
And
based on.
I don't, excuse me, I don't know how much that affects our bills,
Okay.
so. And by the way, the deficit that's expected is about $11,000 unless there's a rate increase based upon. So if we use as much water this year as we did last year, there's around $11,000 shortage in that account.
Okay.
But if that's our biggest issue that we have all year long, we'll be very happy here.
Am I correct, John? It looks like you did, two budget transfers. One was a correction of, budget line item for, summer school, and there was another budget transfer for,
What page are we on?
I was looking at the underlying detail, but it looked like there was just a correction on the budget for summer supplies, summer school to contract services. This page 2.
Is it
So in,
listed on here?
so in that case, and Mrs. Dugan is looking at a
Oh,
report
okay,
that not
all right.
everybody has.
We don't,
Okay.
we don't all have
That, in that case, it was originally, this isn't a correction, this isn't a transfer, it was originally posted with the wrong
Okay,
account, and
this
then
is
we
the
had to
correction.
repost it. So it was a
Okay.
journal entry that didn't result in the transfer of funds between accounts, but the correction that we caught before it became an issue, but nonetheless, it still shows up because it affected the accounting system.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's a correction, not a budget transfer. Okay,
Correct.
that's good. Okay.
Ellen?
Under, special ed tuitions, we've expended, that looks like that's the prepayment that we had voted on from the year-end surplus from FY16. Because
You
we've
are
been-
looking at,
I'm looking at, on page 1
It's page 1, but it's
of the report, the second line,
the second page 1.
oh, the second page one.
Second.
This report
The
that you
second.
gave us in the packet,
okay.
the detail. Yeah,
Okay.
second line, special education tuitions expended 150,661 in round numbers.
Mhm.
So that reflects the prepayment?
No. 156, the number you see here expended in 2017 is what we actually spent in this fiscal year. So the prepayments show up as an expenditure last year.
Okay,
And so when we ended 16, it's recorded as an expense in 16. So we prepaid some tuitions for, essentially for summer programs for students out of last year for last year's program, which included summer school. So these were expenditures in this fiscal year for programs this year.
These are like the first tuition bills
Yeah.
of the fiscal.
Yeah.
and again, maybe it's just how things are timed, because last year through August, we spent 1,500 on special ed tuitions, and then we spent 150,000, so maybe it's the timing of
Could
how,
just be the timing of bills.
of the bills and how they come
when
in,
they came.
okay.
And it may also have been, was the report that was run last year actually a month-end report, or did it?
It said 8/31/15.
Okay, so it should have been a month-end report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Well, the other thing I had was contract services. Count 0045 is up, 67% spent to budget.
Ellen, when I was looking at that, it seemed to, be driven, or, I don't know, I didn't calculate the percent, but, there were some big numbers under IT, which we
Mhm.
expected due to all the summer
All
work
the
that
summer
was,
work,
summer
yeah.
work that was done, so,
So that's just front loaded.
that's just front loaded,
Yeah,
that was
okay.
kind of my impression around, there was a bunch of outside services related to IT that were front loaded and paid.
I also know in that line item, and I don't know when they were paid last year, is Blackboard Connect, for instance, and the web hosting service that we have, those all were paid in the month of August. Now, I don't know if they were paid last year, year over year at the same time.
I just have one other question, cause I don't think I understood what the, line description meant. But just the very first one under general fund for, under regular education, the pupil transportation total. I just didn't know what that meant exactly, cause there's pupil transportation, then personnel, and then expenses.
So I can tell you the $40,038
Yeah.
are lease payments for the buses.
Oh, okay, I got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
On the lease for the bus, is that a quarterly bill or is that an annual bill? Cause the total cost of the lease is $127,000, so it must be,
My and I don't actually have the right answer
Yeah.
for you, we can look it up. But I think that some of the lease payments come due at different times.
okay.
So would it be
I think we
99?
actually have a couple of leases, with NET leasing, and they don't run on the same schedule, from my recollection.
My only concern was the one that Barb was just articulating, which is our total lease cost is $127,000 and we have budgeted $40,000, so
So
my question was, did the rest go against revolving?
No, I think, my recollection is that we had some funding within the budget, there's a separate article in town meeting for lease payments. And so that comes out of a different line item in the town's general accounts.
Oh, that's,
So this comes under the control of,
yeah,
of what is the school budget. The other comes out of what a capital budget item, capital
That's it.
articles.
Thank you.
and so yes,
Yeah,
thank you.
so
I
it's
was
a different
missing
fund,
that.
and I think that's the answer to that.
Yes,
It is,
thank you.
cause it's $85,000, so the 85 plus the 40 gets you to the
Okay.
127 or that we were looking for. Okay, thank you.
No problem. It's your money.
If only.
Well, it's the taxpayers' money. and you
Right,
put it to
we are taxpayers, so I guess
That's fine.
technically it is. Okay,
Alright,
any other?
okay.
Yeah, I
do you
just have
another
a
question?
general question. In going through the detail, that John had given Katie and I in preparation for our budget subcommittee meeting tomorrow, I see by building, different spend rates on things for supplies, instructional supplies and materials and things like that. Is that typical?
Yes.
Okay.
So very typical. For example, some of the math supplies at Osgood are all consumable, where they may not be at Deer Hill, so there's a flux there. But there are also, when you get to middle high school, a number of courses that have great consumable cost.
Okay.
Woodworking, for example, the art and photography, those kinds of things. So there are many more used materials. It's very common.
Yeah, it just seemed like Osgood and Deer Hill spent a little earlier, and seems like the high school maybe not. And then
Correct.
we also have carryover inventory on certain things
Well,
that,
The high school also has half-year courses.
Right.
So we're spending now and then again in January for the shift to different courses, so that too.
And it's sometimes influenced by how much storage space you have.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long list of things.
Or what's on sale.
Or what's on sale.
Actually, I had just one other, reminded me of one other question, just that the one area I thought might be consistent, I can have, the other differences made sense, but the personnel expenditure at the middle school seemed to be about half of the other schools, so I just was wondering why an
Half
expense.
of one other school. The high
Well,
school.
like personnel total for Cohasset Middle School is at 0.68%, and the personnel totals for Deer Hill are 1.44, and at the high school are 1.54, and at Osgood or, well,
So those are the
7.97.
that didn't have summer work. Yeah, which work is on, yeah.
Okay, so is that just a reflection of summer?
I'm
It's just
not
kind of curious,
understanding your
right?
question.
Yeah.
That the percentages of the total personnel salary is
Yeah.
less at one school than another?
Yeah, I thought
Well,
there
there are
would be more
fewer
even.
teachers.
Okay.
In some schools there are.
But there'd be a fewer budget amount, right? Or is it
It's
coming out of?
also depending on step, salary, experience, et cetera.
Okay, all right.
There's that big variable on who is teaching what, at what step, and how many years, and how many teachers per building. Okay.
It may have to do with who's working there over the summer, so middle school may have less people that are 365-day workers versus 180, and because what you don't see in July and August are any salary payments for somebody that's on a 180 contract. So if you have more people that are, for example, secretaries, if you have 2 secretaries, you're paying for summer work at the high school versus middle school, you could swing it that little, because we're still so early in the year. Okay.
Okay, are we done?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm done.
Good. So next is bus maintenance.
And really what I can tell you about the buses is that they're all on the road, they're all inspected. Passed all the inspections. There has been nothing major that we've had to deal with the buses. As part of the inspection process in August, all the glass in the buses was looked at. There was no glass that needed to be replaced or we expect to have to replace. And tires were all in good shape and we will be allowed before we have to get tires.
So, in comparison to last summer we were, I think, at closer to $6,000 in expense on our buses, and this summer, at the same point, at the end of August, we're at $1,600, so, and some of it comes down to the 2 owned buses in terms of what the breakdowns were, and we had some significant ones last summer.
I don't know what the expenses were last year, perhaps you just caught up with your maintenance.
Well, we have the two vans also that we're not using.
The vans are essentially off the road, we're not using them.
And we had a couple of very big ticket items last year for repairs on those, so
And-
that's probably part of it too.
And as you know, we've talked to the town about whether or not they have an interest in it, because the senior is working on that. Last month, a question came up about mileage on the buses. There is, and I confirmed with NED Leasing, there is no mileage clause in our contract.
Oh, good.
So,
I thought there was. I thought it was $15,000.
No, there isn't.
15,000 miles.
Well, that's good news.
It is good news.
So,
So we don't have to
we
stress
try to
about
keep
that.
the mileage relatively the same between them. Routes are more or less the same.
Yeah.
We use the lease buses whenever possible. We use our own buses as spare buses to be used when necessary, or if there has to be a trip that leaves before the bus runs are over. Mostly we try to have the same driver use the bus, make it their bus. Now, it's not 100%, but because there are times that they're off and times that they're substitutes. But rather than rotating buses among people, it's somebody's bus. We expect them to take care of it. If there are any issues with how it's being treated, we know whose bus it is. All right.
Good.
Okay. So next is the budget calendar.
So what you have before you is a calendar with months but not days in there. It's a broad overview of how the process will work here. We know that May 1st is the day that's listed. We have to go to town meeting and hopefully have everybody vote for a budget. My expectation is March 22nd in accordance with the way you conducted your budget before. It's the last school committee meeting in March. Tentatively, I put that down as the day I expect you to vote the budget. We know we'll need a public hearing in March on the budget, required by law to do that. The rest is somewhat negotiable. We will be starting internally our budget process and ask people to think about the sort of large ticket items that they may need to deal with in terms of maintenance. Mary will be asked to start to think about what it's going to, Mary Buchanan, our student services director, be asked to start to think about what placements will look like for next year. We know that there's going to be a lot of shifting in that, but at least to give them the starting point.
Just for historical purposes for you, previous to last year, you would have the public hearing and the vote the same night. Last year, we decided to break it up. That way, it gave us a week or two more to kind of, fine tune some of the items that we discussed, in the hearing.
I would hope that the public, if they have a concern, will weigh in and we'll hear from them, and I'm sure that with the advisory committee, will offer some thoughts.
I'm sure they will.
But yes, when we actually have the formal budget hearing, if in fact you get some feedback from the public, that gives you that opportunity to think about it, and maybe make some adjustments. If
Right.
you have that time to vote.
Sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would actually, I'd recommend that we put March 15th as kind of a date for the public hearing, because I think
Is that
that's the meeting
the
before.
meeting before?
And just kind of put, I like how you did it this year. It didn't, we know we have 2 meetings a month, but it allows us the flexibility to kind of move based on where we are at that moment. But I think in terms of, you're right, the deadline is May 1st. We have to vote March 22nd. I would say we'd probably have to do the public hearing on March 15th.
Well, and I hate to say this because we're still in summer. We might wanna think about, maybe even making it a little earlier, because if we have an advertised public hearing and it happens to snow that night, that becomes a problem. So maybe we'll, think about what those days are when it gets a little closer.
It's not going to snow.
Well, I hope so. I hope so. But, I was gonna say, but then again, I don't have to worry about calling off schools. So other
That's
things
right.
feel differently
It's
about
not your
that.
job.
Yeah, not my issue.
But I'm calling.
So I think it really, and we tried to build in here some opportunity for the committee to weigh in as to what their concerns are, what their priorities are, what they'd like to see. We have a strategic plan, we made some representations from the town last year in terms of program and what we thought were, we as a group, administration, school committee, what we thought were priorities, what direction we thought the school should go. So now comes really the question, are those still valid, are those assumptions still right?
Anybody comments? I'm sorry.
Just 2 quick thoughts. One, in October, I like the fact that we'll have a discussion around, from a school committee perspective, what the budget priorities are. Last year, we put out a budget message that was kind of similar concept to what the Board of Selectmen are working on right now with their budget message. I think they talked about it. They're talking about it soon, and finalizing that. We had talked this year about the leadership team, before we finalize a budget message, talking to the school committee about student achievement priorities. It was one of the things that we put in our annual calendar, and the idea was that before we set budget or fiscal priorities, it'd be really good to know what the educational objectives were. And to be honest, we kind of did it a little backwards last year in terms of the conversation. So I'd love for you guys to consider putting in October that conversation around what are the student achievement priorities as it relates to fiscal 18, so that drives the conversation.
I think our conversation has been more general as to what do we want for children as a whole, because we're also looking at social emotional learning, and we're also looking at digital learning, universal design for learning, so those kinds of things above and beyond just an achievement data. So I really would like to keep that into perspective too.
Yeah, and I guess maybe when I'm saying student achievement, I'm not focused on
More
test
global.
scores,
Okay.
I'm and it may be,
It's a narrative.
it's a narrative.
It's the narrative that starts the whole process and lays the foundation and lets us tell the story to the town of why the budget is the way it is.
Okay, I just wanted to.
Yeah.
And you, feel free to change that, because we chose the word, you could wordsmith away, last year we talked about it in terms of student achievement, it can be something else, but it was supposed to be here, not down here, in terms of, where we were moving the district.
So a student-centered budget.
Yes, exactly. So let's start with that before we get to the nitty-gritty of other pieces. The second comment was really one for discussion with the committee. At the bottom of the list, John and Louise had suggested that we have budget meetings or joint meeting with selectmen and advisory committee. I like that concept, whether it's joint or we present to board of selectmen and then advisory. Actually kind of curious about the joint concept. That could be interesting dynamic. But I would say that end of February is the time to have that conversation. I feel like, again, last year, we learned a lot, but having the conversations mid-March was a little too late. It would be ideal to have those conversations end of February when we've gone through enough versions. So if people object, I think just putting February as kind of the guideline for that instead of TBD is what I would recommend.
So when I wrote this up, it was sort of done in a vacuum, if you will.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that opportunity is for the town to meet with the school committee and offer some guidance as to what they see as priorities in the town and where the school fits into that. And that really was what this was to address, an opportunity for the major policy-making boards in the community, selectmen, advisory committee, and the school committee, to come to some common understanding as to what they held as important and where it fit.
So the town manager will put out a recommended guideline for the year-over-year increase probably in December. And so if we're at or below that number, it's a very, very easier conversation. If you're above it, that's when the conversation is more in-depth, and that's exactly where we sat last year, where we were we're $168,000 above that number. I think we don't know where we're gonna land this year, but I think one thing that was helpful was, first off, the school committee had never gone in front of the Board of Selectmen before. It was necessary last year, but I think it's, as one of our school committee goals, we've talked about collaborating and keeping them in the loop, and I think budget cycle is a perfect opportunity to have that conversation. It'd be helpful to them and to us if we did it a little before the deadline, because I think we had the meeting with the Board of Selectmen on Tuesday and had the public hearing the following night, so that was a little too. So that's part of my recommendation, was move it back to the end of February to give us a little bit of breathing room to have that conversation with the Board of Selectmen and have our public hearing.
Well, also, when Louise and John started to put this calendar together, Louise came to me and asked what certain things were on this. Last year, all the fiscal forums were listed,
Yeah.
and I explained that was a series of meetings that Chris had held to explain kind of the state of the town financially. And they've been removed from here because we don't know if there's going to be a similar effort. So there may be.
You may have, I would think Chris might have one or two, but I
Yeah.
think the long-range planning group may kind of supplant some of those meetings as a public meeting for people to attend. I haven't seen.
Yeah, I don't know.
haven't-
I don't know, so we need to talk about that a little bit too.
And if I could just add, and again, I don't know your town, I don't know what role the governor's budget plays in your budget guidelines. So we know at the end of January, third week in January, more or less, the governor will release his budget. The budget will, among other things, have his blueprint for Chapter 78 and local aid. Whether that becomes the floor, the ceiling, or how seriously it's taken, gosh, I don't know. In some communities, that becomes sort of the cornerstone of the town's budget process, or at least an important factor. Now, don't know if that's going to influence timing or not. Have to share with me whether that's important.
Right, and I just received an email today from Senator O'Connor, who I had corresponded with when the vetoes were going on for the governor's budget. And he said that he would be happy to come and do an overview of what the finances look like for this year too, so we can probably schedule something like that
That'd be-
with him. That would be great.
The Chapter 70 numbers, they're part of that one-page long-range forecast for the town, but it honestly, in terms of magnitude of input, it's not, yes, it's a conversation about the financial health of the state, but it doesn't really drives $50,000 in terms of maybe
Right.
what drops to the bottom line. If we're off, we're generally off more than $50,000. So,
Ellen?
Just dovetailing off the, concept of joint meetings, I read this as school committee presents budget to a joint meeting of the selectmen and, or the advisory as a separate joint so a school committee with the joint, not selectmen and advisory together, the school committee in one meeting.
Okay.
I read
That-
it either or.
Oh,
We did it separately last
we
year.
did it separately, yeah. But in listening to the conversation though, I'm wondering, John, if you're thinking that even before we present, and you've seen the packet we did last year, before we make that presentation, are you thinking about a pre-meeting to that, just a sit-down and a roundtable conversation about budget in general?
I think that would be useful. I don't
Okay.
think we wanna be committed, I don't think we wanna ask the principals and the administrators to do an awful lot of time and effort into a budget that perhaps is not going to be approved. It doesn't meet with towns, means, or meet with the school committee's approval as well. So, a little testing of the water, checking for understanding, agreeing that we're all on the same page would be useful. Yeah.
Okay, great. The only other question I had, and I should know this, but in October, we talk about the principal submitting special building maintenance requests to the business manager. What happens to that information? Because we don't typically budget maintenance. Maintenance is provided to us as a service from facilities. So I guess my question, and I should probably know the answer to this question, is do those requests then get passed on to Mark Kelly to be considered or inputted into his budget?
It depends where they fall.
Okay.
You can take that if you like. Facilities will do, you know, the tiles, the
Right.
floors, that kind of thing, but we're also talking about desks, teachers' desks, or boards that are broken, am I right? Yeah.
Okay.
So it's more of what the school owns as materials as opposed to the structure.
Okay. All right.
We wanna make sure that the building principals have an opportunity to tell us what they see as shortcomings, not in their programs, because that's gonna be supplies and materials and
Yeah.
textbooks, but in the facility itself. Some you'll see in the budget that we put forward, and some winds up with Mark Kelly and the facilities group here now.
An example of that is Carolyn and I have spoken about the teachers' desks at the high school in particular, and I think some at the middle school, which are showing age and can be a bit damaging to children if you hook yourself on
Yeah,
a
you
part of the
snag,
limb
yeah.
and so on. So those need replacing, but that's not facilities, that's really ours, and it may be a capital request, and that's what I'm looking at right now because there are so many.
Yeah,
But
I
if
don't
there
know
were
if
just a
there's-
few of them, that would be our maintenance.
Okay, I got you. No, I appreciate that, so you'll triage them to facilities, our budget, or maybe even capital.
When we
depending on-
can't use duct tape.
Exactly. There's that great wood-looking duct tape out there.
Like the leopard.
Any more questions on this? So I would say we start plugging in dates of meetings, because we already have the whole meeting calendar and see,
Yeah, you can just go right off, right?
yeah. Any more comments? No? Okay. Thanks. Okay, so next is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. I mentioned before that, and when I met with Ellen and Katie, when we met and looked at the overall calendar for the year, we talked about, our goal was technology. And we felt that we needed to show what this great investment was producing. And last week, we heard from Jane all those wonderful things that she does in AP, so she's not to blame, I am. I asked Mr. Welch if he would come to display some of the try-its. And on my initial address, we had a different term for this. And the opening day, I had asked that the teachers try it. so that the principals and I, when we visited the classrooms, would look for teachers who attempted to use technology. We weren't looking for perfection, we were looking more for reflection on what they had done. So I've decided to use that term because it just fits. And so Mike has done a great try it. I think we talked about the teachers who have done some some certificate work in technology, and Mike is one of those who really embraced a lot of that. And so I'm going to introduce him to do that wonderful try it.
I just had a few things to show Mrs. Demus when she spoke to me. She asked me to show how technology is truly changing instruction, so not just bells and whistles or, oh, it looks really good up there, but how is it actually changing the structure of what we do in the class. So I guess the best way that I could look at that is to look at more of an individual approach. That the technology that's out there, just even in the past few years, has allowed us to give much more individual attention to students, and a shift from an averagarian approach of looking at students toward a more individual, in line with UDL and all that. So I thought the best way to show that is just a few kind of quick hits that I do in my class. One of the most important parts of that is formative assessments and quick hits to see exactly where students are. The A student might be an A student, we look at that average, but they might have strengths and weaknesses within that A. And the C student might have strengths and weaknesses within the C. We want to find out exactly where those strengths and weaknesses are. So one of them is just a quick evaluation tool that's out there in a lot of different places that I had the opportunity to view in another school when we did some visits. And then in addition to that, a self-pacing class. So Jane's class that she's in is a self-paced class. Partially, it's kind of a
It's
hybrid
economics,
self-paced class, an economics class, where students can work at their own pace. And the technology allows that own pace because just the management of documents and tests and all of that, it allows you to be able to do that. Because it's a noble goal to say over 180 days, kids can go at their own pace, but how can you really manage that with that many students? So the technology does help that, to be able to accomplish that. And then also just the supports that can be put in place. Some students need a little bit more support, they need to see something 2 or 3 times. How can you continue moving with the curriculum and still allow that everybody gets all the support that they need? So those 3 things, between the formative assessments, the self-pacing, and then the structures and the supports that students need. I think some of the technology that I'll show you today hopefully will give you that. So the first thing I want to show you is Nearpod. This is a nifty little program, it's a web-based program. So I just want to thank, we can actually use the web now. What was it, Thursday or Friday? It was wonderful. This is exciting. And I literally had students using data at the beginning of the year, so now we're up and running. So that's been wonderful. I know. I really want to thank you for that. So many of us have been chomping at the bit to get going, so we just hope that support continues, because this is just beginning even with those circumstances, and I'm sure that a lot of teachers will move forward as we get more access, and that investment in technology really does mean something, and really does pay off in the classroom. So just a little sideshow. So Nearpod's this nifty little thing where students can, so what I have is on the left I have the teacher's view, and on the right I have the student's view. What students can do is they can actually go to, it's called Nearpod. I can create a lesson in Nearpod. They put a code, they can use their phone, they can use a laptop, anything else. And when they go in, they sign in. And what's really nice about this is the slide presentation, so nothing really fancy, but I can actually control their slides. So they can sit with their phone or their laptop, but the teacher can move at the pace they want. This should also help assuage, that fear of middle schoolers with technology, that they might be going off, not even middle schools, but they might go to different places, that you can actually control their screens. So it does make it a little bit nice. I mean, they could X out, but you can always see the black and white, so you can, if you're paying attention, sitting behind them, it does allow for that control. So this is just a little, what I can do is, in this case, I have, a reminder for some students on how to calculate present and future values, something for economics class, the AP economics class, little definitions. So this would be something that I do at the end of the year to make sure they know something that they've learned earlier. And then the really cool part of it is, then what we can do is we can take a test. So there's a test that's been created here. Sorry, I'm trying to do the split screen, it's getting a little rough here. And change size. So I can't get, is it right there? Oh, look at that. There we go, so there's a little quiz. So on the left, I can see what the students are doing. Let me try to make this, I apologize. Sorry, I really had it all set up. There we go. So there's a quiz on the side, and then I can see Michael Welch's score. So let's just say he goes through and he keeps clicking, and he just, I don't know the answer, so I can figure them out. I hope, if that's the case. So Mike Welch is answering all the questions, and what's happening is during the class, while the class is going, I can see the questions that he gets correct or gets wrong. So, and I can see that if there were 20 students, I can see each individual student's scores as they pass up. So then, if as a teacher, I can see, oh, everyone got number 2 wrong. So then I know that that's a place to go back to reteaching. Or sometimes, maybe most of the students get it right and some don't. Then I can pull a kid aside after class when we're walking out, say, oh, why don't you come after school and we can work on this. So it allows me to know where. So a student can't hide and not raise their hand, and they're not embarrassed not to raise their hand because I can see all the results. And then a little nifty thing that can happen with it now. Hopefully I can show with the split screen. Then I can actually share the results to them. And Mike knows he didn't do too well. But you can see, you can hopefully see the quick results, which obviously is great. You can have that instant feedback. You can, it can really shape your instruction from that. Even within the class you can, if you see that there's some strengths and weaknesses. So, and again, every individual student you can see that. So the Nearpod is just a quick little way to check that. Some other teachers are using other programs, just so you know. Kahoot is another one that's out there that I think some other teachers are using. So this isn't the only one, it's just the one that I guess I feel most comfortable with. Another thing that's, to show you just a quick example of the self-pacing, on my class website, what we've done, again, through different technologies, I've been able to hopefully make students work at their own pace. So we had a quiz, Jane took it today?
Yeah, I think it's.
Some students took it 2 days ago. But because I can do an online quiz that can be graded instantaneously for the students, they can take it when they're ready. Less stress.
Yeah.
No one's stressing about the quiz because it's not right now you have to take it. So students, when they're ready, can come up and take the quiz. So I'll just do a random class. So I've written out my own class notes just because I guess I'm controlling.
I do want to share that Mike has written his own textbook as well.
This is it, yeah, so this is it online, so all the different units. And within it, this is a goal, it isn't done for all of them. I've actually created some videos, that go with it. So I can go here, and here's a little video, again, if a student missed that day, they can go back and do this. Or the beauty of videos is you can go back, and that one little glitchiness that you don't get that one concept, or you don't get that one piece of math, you can just go back a little bit and see it again and again. So we're helping support those students, again, who might need to learn at their own pace. So we don't need to see my videos. They're online though, if you want to see them. Maybe I'll show you one for something else. So as we go through, so this is the book, and there's videos included within the book. And then another thing, there are videos and quizzes connected to it. So these are packaged from an economics education. The students can education group, so they can play a video and then take a quiz. Again, when they're ready. So we've learned everything. When they get to a certain point, they watch the video, and they have multiple chances to do that. I can give them the best grade. So again, if they need multiple chances, we'll get to that mastery. It gives those different chances for them to get it. Let me see. Sue knows my jing's popping up.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. Going too fast. Now I'm spinning. Okay. It always goes back to the top. I don't know why. And then, so the students can they watch the videos and take the quiz. And then the class is also an interesting class. And I think this is one way to actually make it very doable. Within the class, I have CP and accelerated students. So one way to truly make it a different class is there's different skills attached to both the CP and the accelerated. Everybody does the CP work, and then the accelerated are extension activities, skills maybe a little more math-based, maybe between an AP level and a CP level to get them used to the math. So again, that's where the videos come in, and they're kind of handy. They can do them at their own time. So everybody gets the basis, and everybody gets all everything, the stuff that's within the curriculum, the frameworks, the national standards, but if we want to go beyond it. So in this case, I can show a video, so they can watch it, but the accelerated students can watch it. Maybe I'll do a little. I hate doing those. So within this, and I can go through, and there's my little lesson that goes with it. This can be done on the smart boards in the school, by the way. So the smart boards, you can use the smart boards along with a program that I can go on the smart board and make the recordings. So it's a pretty handy way to, one extra thing about the smart boards that I'm not sure that everybody knows about, so a little bit more. And then after that, they can complete a homework assignment. So again, that specialization, who's getting what, different students can work on different things. And then there's a quiz at the end, that they can take a quiz. It's a Google Forms quiz, which a lot of people are familiar with. But there's a little program called Flugaroo, which is a very strange name, but that corrects the test for them instantaneously. So again, that idea of instant feedback, they get an email with their grade right away. And I have a spreadsheet with every question that everybody gets right and wrong. So again, I can use that to inform my instruction later on. So that would be the self-pacing aspect of the class. Another piece of technology that we have, a little bit of a side note to that, is because it's a self-paced class, you're always nervous about students. Self-paced can be scary with some students, with the idea of procrastination, and I don't even want to say students, I want to say human beings. If you don't have
before the end of the term.
Yeah, there's quite a few assignments. We do a lot of little assignments and stuff. But the website that we have is pretty nifty because you can actually put a calendar here. So with the calendar at the bottom, and you can have the assignments. And I don't know how many people know that I figured this out. This little green button, the students can sync it with their phones. Yeah, so it's nifty, so they can get messages and everything's there, so it can be on their calendar. So to provide support for that self-pacing that a lot of people like, or maybe younger grades parents can have that if they're really concerned about those things. So that would be the self-pacing aspect and a little bit of the extra support with the videos. Even in the AP class, we can use some of the technology to provide that kind of reinforcement. One example of that would be I've created a class wiki with the idea that some concepts are difficult and some concepts, I might not explain well for a student. The book might not explain it well, and they still need that added support. So one of the things that I found has been pretty helpful is for me to collect all the Khan Academies and all the different videos that are out there online, so the students don't have to go searching for them. Mm-hmm. If they feel like, I don't know this skill, I can put them together on the wiki, and it's a quick, easy way for them to look for it.
And hopefully you've vetted them too, that those
Oh,
are
yeah,
the
yeah.
ones to be looking at versus what they source themselves.
Well, as a matter of fact, with this class, I started teaching 5 years ago, and it had been about 20 years since I had taught an economics class, so the Khan Academies really helped me. So I figured if they help me, they help the students. They're really good. Like I after watching them, I was sold. I think it helped sell me on these things. So with that, and also I put some PowerPoints on there that is self-load. So if the students click through it, there might be a question. They can work out the question on their own and then find the answer. So it's almost an online workbook through a PowerPoint. So these are those extra things that students who might be struggling a little bit, you don't need the tutor, you can go to this and it'll give you one more chance to try to learn that material. So this has been very helpful in that way. And then the last thing that I think it's really good, this is a newer, actually it's another website. Another thing that, I don't want to end my session now. I think it was here. You want to, yes, sorry. Oh, shoot. I'll get back into it. Another thing that, and if I can't get back into it, it's very easy to explain. One thing that the homework allows us with a lot of the online homework is for our students to do their homework through problems that are set up, from the website. And a number of the, I'm sorry that I make the whole speech, I'm trying to find this. Another thing that helps is the idea that when the students do the homework, they can actually have it self-corrected instantaneously. So this is the website, and I know the other AP teachers, and I think there's some other programs in the high school that allows this to happen. If the students are doing their online homework through one of these programs, so I'll just pick one of these that they have to do. Doesn't really matter. So I can go through and I can complete the homework assignments that are here, and if I get the homework assignment wrong, there's an explanation of the concept. So they can answer the question, grade it instantaneously, and if they get it wrong, there's a little box like this that pops up that explains the concept, and then they have a second or a third chance to get it correct. So again, that idea of leading towards mastery, and the homework, I think it's making homework very meaningful, where it's a learning experience for them. They're not just doing work, but they're finding their strengths and weaknesses. you always tell the students, go back to that section of the textbook and read that, so that way you can learn, not come in with questions. But usually after the third time, they do have a master. So hopefully all of these things, just to kind of wrap it up, hopefully all of these things show that we can give a little bit more individual attention to the students. So it's really changing a lot of the dynamics within the classroom. And hopefully we continue to get support to move forward with this. I think it's really making a difference in the classroom, to be honest. So I guess that's it. Any questions?
I just have one, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Just one little thing I'd like you to address, and if you were to give advice to parents who are seeing this as a new form of instruction, do you have a little bit of advice?
As a new form of instruction?
Well, it's new for them, it's self-pacing, so did you get any apprehension at home, Jane, or?
Well, like, I usually just, like, do it on my own, and my parents kind of, like, trust that, like, the grades are kind of, like, they affect me, not my parents, so, like, it's kind of, like, up to me, so. But, like, I like it because, like, it helps you manage your other classes, because, like, if I have, like, a huge bio lab due the next day, like, I might want to push my economics homework off till the next day. Like, that happened this week, and it was like.
But she does.
But it helps
We'll talk
a lot.
later. I would address when the online grades helps with that. That we've just instituted in the high school, and some of us have been raging to get that for a long time. I want people to know. The online grades helps that, because now if parents can access the grades, they can. We talked about the procrastination aspects of things, and the students also can access their grades, which students I think like a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Students like to see that, so they can see their progression through time. So I would say the online grades really like lessens a lot of the tension, and again, just another use of the technology that makes it a little more. Everything's out there. Everything's very transparent, in a way. Yes.
So speaking of that, so how through all those different programs and quizzes and homework and all of that, how do those grades get to your online grade book?
Some of them I do have to go to multiple sources. That's
Okay.
that's something that's
So
a
you gotta
little
keep
clunky
track,
with it.
yeah.
I do have to keep track. They're all digital though, so I might have multiple grade books per se in different websites. So that's something, and I do think the technology, we're still a decade, maybe a little more than a decade into this, so a lot of the publishers are creating better websites with things that can coordinate just a little bit, but I do have to go to different places to get the grades. But they're all pretty easy, they're accessible, they're on spreadsheets. Yeah. Yes?
I just have two questions. One is with the self-pacing, how do you make sure that all the kids are being exposed to the same amount of material over the entire
Well, it's
period?
hybrid. There's still direct instruction.
Okay.
We still have discussions in class. I'm in class making sure, I do think it's the burden on the teacher then to make sure that that the students are on task and working. I do have, I keep track of all the assignments that are coming in.
Mhm.
What I've done is I've tried to put the assignments into the grade book early and put them, I've created suggested due dates. So I've been trying to get the grades in around the suggested due date, so that way we can see what's being accomplished.
Okay.
But I think I'm pleased with how the students are doing.
And then can I ask one more question?
Yeah.
In a typical class period,
Yes.
how much time is sort of traditional, like lecture based, and then how much time is
It would vary based
transitioning
upon
to
the class.
be-
An AP class might be much more direct instruction.
Okay.
This class, we do the students do presentations every day on current events and economics,
Mhm.
relating it to what we've done in class,
Mhm.
5-10 minutes, within a 90-minute period. My discussion's usually one topic, 15 to 20 minutes, and then the remainder of it is a mix of the different activities. It's not just these activities they do, there's other student-centered activities that they work on ongoing. So at any one time, there might be 2 or 3 different activities that the students have, so they can, one might be a little artsy, one might be writing, one might be working on the videos. So there's a choice even within the day for the students to get those things accomplished. Yes?
So with regards to student pacing, you're talking about like a matter of days, maybe a week or so, but you're not talking about students pacing themselves like a month or.
Well, I don't know, I've had some of you, I actually write out all the assignments for the course.
Yeah.
So the students know all the assignments that are there, all the points that are there, and I put on a calendar all of those things.
Right.
So my suggested dates are what they use. Jane might have, I have dates, you might wanna do this now, and I remind them, there's an essay due, that's gonna be due in a week, you wanna keep on top of that. But everything's written out for the students ahead of time, so they know where they should be going.
I do wanna remind you that it is a try it, and
Right.
it's working and it's under,
Yeah,
it's a
it's
time
great.
zone, it's
It's great.
working.
Mhm.
So there's going to be reflection along the way, but as Mike said, we're seeing success already. So we're on the right track, and we are entrusting children to, or students to self-pace, self-motivate, take responsibility for their own learning and push themselves a bit. So, I think it would be interesting this time next year to see what we've tweaked out of it, but we're finding our way and it's working. Thank you.
I really like
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you so much for volunteering and taking your time.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you.
We're playing tag, he gets to find somebody for next time.
Tell them that we were nice and polite.
I'll just add one more comment, just since you're here. I was talking to a parent who has a child who's a freshman in college now and had you last year, and they just commented in particular on the economics course the student's taking and said the professor was really impressed with their knowledge of economics. So, I don't know. It's always nice to hear that.
He was Massachusetts economics teacher of the year.
Anyway.
Thank you. All set?
Yes.
2 years, would you say, Cindy?
3.
3 years in the making when we looked at the middle high school library and said, okay, if we fix the leak and we look at this library and we make it more conducive to learning and studying, what would it look like? And CEF came forward and said, hey, I got an idea. And Carolyn and Cindy and Carolyn have certainly done. I was totally amazed. I didn't come in on the inception, but when I saw the pieces of material and the flooring and I was absolutely amazed. So they're here to present where they are in 3 years. So really going. So Carolyn and Cindy. Thank you.
Give you just a little bit of a background on what we're proposing, and then we'll give you the reveal. So our proposal is to transform the existing middle high school library into a 21st century learning commons. And that entails a flexible, dynamic, collaborative space, one which incorporates universal design for differentiated learning, and digital literacy. In the library world, there are terms of art called the cave, the watering hole, and the campfire. And this learning commons incorporates each of those. The cave being a quiet, reflective, research type of space. The watering hole is a collaborative, flexible, open space where you come and share knowledge or what your projects are that lead into new ideas and cross disciplines. And the campfire being the large presentation space where we're sharing common knowledge with our community. And that's what this design is intending to create. Individual spaces, small and large group spaces, open to research and collaboration as well as community presentation. And as Louise alluded to, the origins began back in 2013. But I just want to say the origins are truly in keeping with the core principles of the CEF, which means it has to come from the ground up, from the teachers, the administrators, and the students. And it began with the previous librarian, Mrs. Conroy, working with a bunch of students trying to find a more functional and engaging space in the library. They formed a task force. One of the students sent out a survey among teachers using SurveyMonkey to get ideas about how they might want to be using the space. They put together a grant proposal for us in the spring of 2014, which we funded in the amount of $12,000. Part of that went to buy online database materials, and the remainder was eventually used to work with a design consultant to create what we're going to be showing you here this evening. In terms of finding the designer, we approached several large and small firms that are familiar with library design, as well as some local general designers. And the one that we found was able to work with us within our budget and has experience was Stifura Associates, who's worked on the Paul Pratt Library as well. So they're very familiar with Cohasset and very generous in their time and the budget that we had available to work with them. The task force was formed last spring. That included Ms. Dimas, Mrs. Connolly, all three building principals, so Mr. Scott, Ms. Sandler, Bart Riley from the technology, and then some of us from the community, Carolyn Coffey and me. And the design and the budget were completed at the end of the past school year, so June 2016. Now that the CEF is entering its 10th year of revitalization. It's an opportunity for us to take on a major capital campaign. And we're hoping to, in the process, to celebrate a lot of the work that we've done in years past to promote excellence in education here. But we want to really direct it to this capital campaign in the amount of $250,000 to fully implement the transformation of the middle high school library into a Learning Commons facility. And just so you know some of the background of the rationale for this kind of project, we feel that it melds a grand scale between the school district goals and CEF grants over the past years, which focus on universal design and differentiated learning, as well as support for digital literacy and the implementation of the digital learning plan. It leverages the existing space to fulfill these broader goals. It promotes creative, dynamic, and educational excellence. It brings us alongside our peers in Duxbury, Hingham High School, not to mention Hingham Middle School, which has Learning Commons facilities. And it uses it so that we expect to use 21st century skills in this space, or make it possible to use those kind of skills. So the CEF intends to raise the money over the course of the year. We'll present the district with a check in June. The task force that was formed in the initial design will be responsible for implementing it over the course of the summer, and students and staff should be experiencing a brand new Learning Commons in the fall of 2017. We expect that it has a large and very immediate impact. So we're not breaking down any walls, not lifting the ceiling, we're reforming the furnishing, the layout of the existing space to take advantage of the natural light and provide furnishings which can easily be moved to accommodate multiple uses, to take advantage of the wireless access that is now available and the digital learning plan that's being rolled out with in the middle high school. It will affect potentially every student in the school district, but particularly those who are in grades 5 to 11 right now. They'll feel it most immediately. So we feel it has a very broad and immediate impact. And just to close, one of our newest members on the CEF, who's on the research and development team, Chauncey Cunning, explained it this way. She said, "A Learning Commons is a dynamic place where collaboration, learning, creativity, and innovation are the driving forces. It moves away from the traditional library as a place for storage and retrieval of information to one which supports transformative education through cutting-edge concepts of 21st century skills and learning. A Learning Commons space should be flexible, not just a book warehouse. It should have strong infrastructure, digital hookups, wireless access, and should be livable and utilize the outdoors. We strongly believe that this design accomplishes all of that and respectfully request your approval to move forward with this." To see the big pictures, or the little pictures.
Would it help to move the table? Cindy, do you want to move the table over?
So this is the schematic here. The two doors are here to the middle. So where the big circulation desk is right now would be seating areas with low bookshelves, with new fiction, so that it promotes literacy. The books are right there, and the kids would be more apt to get them. There are small clusters here and there where they can work collaboratively. All of the stacks in the middle of the room would be low, so it'll make the room feel much bigger. It'll give the current librarian, Kathy Cerruti, much better sight lines to all of the remote corners of the room. It will also make this computer lab that's over here feel much more part of the room, and when she's teaching her research class here, she can still keep an eye on what's going on in here. This area here is, again, collaborative learning spaces. These tables, however, pop up and have wheels. Do you have the board there?
This gives examples of some
So
of
they
the
can be wheeled
kinds
out
of
of the way.
furnishings.
And when we have community meetings up there, there's enough seating for, if we stretch into this space, for 100 people. So,
'Cause, yeah, those of you who've been in meetings up there know it takes a team of custodians and football players to move that furniture
Yeah.
around
Otherwise
right now.
known as parents.
But it just feels much warmer and more welcoming, and we hope it will draw people in for collaborative learning.
Great.
So as long as you're okay with it, we're gonna start selling this project.
Thank you.
How would we not be okay with this?
Carolyn looks like she likes it.
We've been
Big
bubbling
smile.
over with excitement for a long, long time. But when we actually saw the furniture specs and what it could be, and my own personal baby about the project is, the seating, you know, the half-moon seating that will be along those big huge windows that are in the back of the library.
Yeah.
Particularly because I've been in other schools that have a learning commons that's kind of adjacent to the cafeteria. But it just became, just by providing that space that's really cool and functional, it just became perfectly okay to be on your own without it being awkward. And, you know, given my population in the middle high school, that's a really important part of just functioning in the space and wanting to just be okay on your own. And some kids love that and need that, and I just think it's a really nice use of time. But the work that they've done is extraordinary, and I could not be more grateful. Thank you, ladies.
The middle high school in West Bridgewater has just built this new school, and I was there today and walked up the stairs and I saw a cyber cafe.
I did too
And I
last
thought,
year, and I was
oh,
salivating.
we can have that.
Are there any more
Kids were
comments?
there enjoying it.
Sorry.
It's great.
From
Sorry.
school committee members? Kate?
I guess, thank you, first off, this is a fantastic plan. The question around the $250,000 goal, Godspeed, if you don't quite hit $250,000, does the plan flex to accommodate a different budget?
100%. We don't think I mean, that's a big goal. We wanna set a big goal. It's not unrealistic, given that we usually raise in a general year somewhere between around $150,000. When it's a targeted ask, people are much more likely to want to give share their funds in seeing what the outcome is immediately. But the budget itself is very flexible. It's compartmentalized with components. So should we, fall short of our goal, then it's up to the implementation team, the task force for the Learning Commons, to just make the choices. Do we want this many numbers of workstation desks or this many numbers of seating areas or movable tables and so forth? So
Lighting choices, there's lots of different ways to.
So
It's
no
good
matter
to
what
know.
happens, there will be a transformed space come fall.
And we so appreciate all the efforts that the CEF puts in for us on behalf of our students and our teachers and our buildings, because you're going to improve our building. So thank you very much.
It's really our pleasure. We're all parents too. We want to see the school community flourishing.
I just feel like I should follow.
Mr. Redmond had a comment.
Yeah, I just
Could
have.
you just say your name and your address?
Nathan Redmond, 44th Ave. I just have a question on process for, CEF hands over, say, a $250,000 check. There's gonna be a construction project that's ongoing. How does that work with external funds coming to the school that has to get funneled through town processes in order to approve it and get it built?
Do you wanna tackle
Jeff?
how it goes into a gift account?
It goes through a gift account. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Into a revolving.
Yeah, it starts off, the school committee needs to vote to accept a gift of money.
Right.
And then that goes into, as they suggest, a separate revolving account that's kept track of. And in fact is turned over to the town treasurer, who actually has control of all town funds. In terms of the actual construction of the project, I'm really not familiar whether or not you're gonna turn that over to us as the town or the school to arrange for the construction, or whether it's gonna be some sort of turnkey operation, so we'll work on those details.
It's not technically
really
construction.
Okay.
There may be painting and carpet removal.
Okay.
It's
So it's not,
remodel.
it's not, we're not breaking walls or changing the
Right,
structure.
you'll have some contractors up there doing some work,
Yeah.
right? But
But it's like any other grant that we have given to the school. It goes into the gift account and then is paid out as the invoices come through.
And it's
We've
also
had a
similar-
project of, we've had a project of our language lab at the middle high school. It was such a project undertaken by
Right, that was our
the
last
CEF.
major
That was
capital
a
campaign.
very major. And so the process has already been gone through. We've already gone through the process, the accepting of the gift and the people coming in and out and installing. So students are not involved. There isn't any of that. It would be mostly summer, and it does go through their revolving account that we have.
I got one final question. Is there any estimation on the differential in sort of operating and maintenance costs ongoing from this improvement? Of
Should
your-
be less, if anything.
It'll be a saving,
Even though you're adding technology and things like that, that might,
the wireless is already there,
It's already
so we're
there.
not adding that.
right,
The
yeah,
wiring
I didn't see
right.
what was included, so.
All of that foundational stuff is there. It's really a remodeling to make it a more conducive space for for students to come and feel comfortable and collaborate and present and feel comfortable being individual learners. So it's really just, it's remodeling, not expense to wiring and that kind of thing. That's already done. The lighting would actually save money.
We feel it's gonna leverage the investment that's been made in the wiring in the digital learning plan already.
That's a good question. Thank you.
And may I?
Yes.
In response to what I think was one of the parts of that question, perhaps we could have the presentation boards on easels in the superintendent's office so the community members could come in and kind of see the scope and get
Absolutely.
ideas of that.
It's also, it's very possible that you may want to give that information to the advisory. If you feel that that's necessary. I think that you can relay that. But I think having it on display in our office would be fun.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Thank you.
We may borrow it
Can-
periodically. when
I
we
was
run
gonna
out of
say.
space.
Fundraising. Well, you'll know where it is.
Just give me a call.
It's all good.
But
Well,
if
you won't have
that's
to
the
store
perfect
it.
place to keep it housed.
You won't have to store it in your cars.
Yeah.
I guess I
Yes.
would, there's been two examples of major projects like this. One was the turf field and the second was the language
Language
lab.
labs.
Yes.
Right, yeah, the reason I ask is because the turf field was a gift that has a replacement cost that's gonna fall onto the town at some point, unless there's another fundraising effort, so that was sort of the genesis of the question is, you know, it's a gift now, but there's some ongoing costs associated with it that will have to fall on the town at some point in terms of upkeep, maybe, I don't know what the scope of it is yet, but just something to bear in mind.
Right, but, as these ladies said, it's mostly furniture, paint, carpet. It's freshening up the space and making it, a little bit more modern.
Opening it up.
Opening it up,
Yeah.
exactly. And you've been upstairs in the library, you know,
Yeah.
the book carrels go almost to the ceiling, and I think that the sightlines are, I think that's a great comment, that the librarian can be in the lab next door and see the whole library that she's responsible for, in
Yeah,
addition
no,
to.
I don't wanna say I'm opposed to the project,
No,
let's
I
keep
get
the
it.
entire, life cycle of the whole facility in mind
Yep.
when we take
We
this
actually
into-
talked about things like, okay, the carpeting is not that bad, but, let's replace it. So we're actually adding life to some of the things that we normally would have to
And
repair.
using things
Right.
The
like
lights,
carpet
et cetera,
squares as
right.
opposed to sheets of carpet that when
Right.
one place gets stained, you remove a square as opposed to an entire floor. So it should be anything lower maintenance cost over time.
Yes, Amanda.
So where we're dropping the bookshelves down, will the library still hold as many books, or will we be reducing? So we're adding, there'll be more units to
They'll
hold
just be,
books, they'll be lower.
tall shelves will be against the walls, the
Okay.
lower shelves will be in the area so it doesn't break. It'll look like you have twice the space in that room, but
And
it's a better design.
is there
and
seating
useful.
along the windows now?
No.
No.
Is there any light shade, like protection on the windows?
There's
Now,
shades
currently,
there.
there's shades now.
They can only be pulled down by hand,
Okay.
so they can only go up by hand, so they're all half raised because that's as far as Kathy can reach.
So in the new plan is.
So the plan is to have new ones that can go all the way up,
Okay.
so that we get twice as much now.
Because there is so much availability of the natural light from the courtyard that's right in there.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
a shame not to be able to take advantage of that.
Right, but then to control it as well, because there'd be glare issues at different times of the day.
Oh, yeah, when you're having a
Yeah.
presentation, you
Okay.
want the shading
Right.
coming down, sure.
It actually faces northeast, so it doesn't
Get too much.
get too much from a direct light at the time of year that we're in.
Thank you.
Do you have a question, Bill?
I was just
I
gonna.
can see your brain
Oh.
working.
Somebody
You weren't,
can.
you weren't sure that you wanted to raise your hand or not.
No, I mean, obviously, this design is going to increase the usership of the learning commons, in comparison to the library. Carolyn, do you see the teaching and learning experience evolving maybe out of some classrooms and into this space at certain times for certain things, or
It
not?
already has started to. I would say that Kathy Sprui's done a terrific job of reaching out to teachers to collaborate on projects for research. I think that the space will be more inviting for collaborative work, so you can, if you know students are working in groups of 3 or 4 or 5, it's a more reasonable place to spread out and, as we've said, still keep an eye on everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people will be flocking to the space.
Yeah.
And teachers have weighed in, students have weighed in on what ways they would like to be able to use it, and they, like, the rest of us, visit other schools and return a little bit envious, So the kids are really excited who were on the original conversation, and certainly teachers are too. I absolutely see it. So we currently have Kathy Cerruti teaches the Intro to Research course as between the computer lab and the current library space. This year, the guidance seminar for 7th graders is taking place in the library space. And so students, and with the implementation of utility periods at the middle and the high school, those are times, because our students are fully scheduled, that the students have access to hanging out in the library, working on things, actually reading and checking out books. So the circulation, or the check-in and check-out of actual books in the library has increased, I would say, 300% in the past 3 years. And new titles fly off the shelf. She puts out a blurb and on the blog in the library, and kids know. And so I think it's already become much, much more user-friendly. And so this will just enhance all of that, for sure.
And she did say, we were in a meeting just the other day, and somebody asked her that exact question. She said, absolutely, she believes the teacher.
We have a question from the audience.
More like an observation. My name is Laura Soderberg at 16 Black Horse Lane, and I know there's also a collaboration of parent volunteers that come after school, and they help to supervise after school, like group collaboration on all the group projects by students. And I know that I'm expecting that too is probably going to increase quite a bit if the space is inviting and lovely and wireless. And I can see the after-school group and collaboration utilizing that space much more than it has been in the past. So I think that's fantastic.
Another comment?
Hi, Jenny Malinowski. I think it sounds amazing. I'm very excited about it. Is there a place where they can film presentations if you're having a group meeting outside of, the community to share and watch on TV?
Well, it's connected with the searching on the CCTV.
Yeah,
That's right
can
in
they
there.
kind of film, like, we can film in here, we can air meetings. Can they film meetings in
Oh,
there?
no, not in that way, but when
Yeah.
we ask, every time we've ever asked John Moran to come in and film something we're doing, such as the college presentation
Right.
for junior, he is so amenable.
right.
And then we have Adam Sasso as our
Excellent.
in-house technology expert, who's also very agreeable to coming and setting that up. And now we have 2 students trained to do the same. So the conversation we had with parents last year about the, substance abuse in the community and our concerns
Right.
around that, we had a student who came to fill that. So we seem to have a kind of a built-in little in-house task force for that, yeah.
Sounds like an awesome space, and parents are gonna wanna go see those things if they can't attend, so great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
I'll take those. You wanna leave them with me or in the office? I'll walk them. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mike. You also asked for an update on the special education update, and Mary is here to do that for us.
I was gonna move the table over so I can sit, or are you fine with me here?
No, you can move over. We don't like the pole in front of your face.
Yes.
Thank you, Barb.
Thank you.
Library is an interesting thing. We saw all kinds of zigzag, crazy colors, and they were all laid out on the tables. It was very difficult to choose. Did we really want to go retro or conservative? And I guess we finally decided what would last the longest and stay in style the longest. And the squares are replaceable, so.
We're in the process of doing squares in our office, so it's a good thing.
Hey everybody, so this is the update. So not much of an update since we met in June, since school just started. But I wanted to give an update regarding staffing. So the staffing that was presented at last year's meeting is also, it's exactly the same. So we have 1 director of student services, 2 team chairs, two school psychologists, the two team chairs and the two psychologists are between an elementary level and a secondary level. We have 4 school adjustment counselors, 1 BCBA, so a board certified behavior analyst, 1 physical therapist that is district-wide, 2 occupational therapists, one's a .8 and one's a .6. We have 4 speech therapists, .1, .1, a .8, 1.0, sorry, 1.0. Sorry. 1.0, 1.0.
How'd you find them?
A .8 and a .6. We have 1 integrated preschool teacher at Osgood and 3 special education teachers at Osgood. We have 4 special education teachers at Deer Hill. We've got 5 special education teachers at the middle school and 3 special education teachers at the high school. ESPs that are special education ESPs at the high school, sorry, I did the reverse order there. At the high school, we have 5 full-time equivalent special education ESPs. At the middle school, we have 9. At Deer Hill, we have 8.4. And at Osgood, we have 7.6. Any questions regarding the staffing? It's all, nothing has changed. And then regarding special ed statistics, we did have some kids move in and move out over the summer. We currently have 195 students on IEPs in the district, so they're at either the Osgood, Deer Hill, or the middle high school. We have 20 students on IEPs and out-of-district placements for a total of 215. Right now, we have 13 initial evaluations that are in progress, so those would be evaluations that parents requested within the last 30 days of school, so it could have 30 school days, so it could have been anything that really came the first or second week of May. Those evaluations roll over into this year, as well as evaluation requests that came in over the summer. And that also includes students that are enrolling new to the district, as well as students that may be becoming eligible for preschool. So that 13 is what's currently in there. So those 13 could potentially add to the 215 that we have currently, but I can't say that that will happen because that would be predetermination. So that's a little bit about the special ed statistics. I didn't get numbers on the reevaluations at this point or the reviews because it's just it's 10 or 15 days in. And then regards to professional development for special education teachers, specialists such as speech, OT, PT, and our general ed teachers and team chairs. So social thinking, we have selected staff at the Osgood that are going to social thinking workshop in Boston on October 5th, 6th, and 7th, and that's conducted by Michelle Garcia-Winner, along with others, but she's the main part of that. On the flip,
Social thinking is the bubble.
yeah, the
Okay.
thought bubble, unexpected thoughts, whole body listening, Larry, so there's a whole bunch of things, and that actually goes from a preschool level all the way through, kids that are at a college level. We are using it much more at the Osgood School, but my hope is to get it more in use up at Deer Hill. We have Wilson Strategies, level 2 advanced strategies for group instruction. We have 10 people that did level 1, and they are eligible to start this training. This is coming out of the 240 grant, and that is on October 11th, 12th, and 13th, and that will be here in this room. Then we have executive function training. So we had 8 staff that went from the middle high school this summer, special education staff, that went to a 2-day training that was put on by Landmark School and their outreach program that was down in Hyannis. So there were 8 of us that went to that training. We're gonna take those strategies and we're gonna use that during our half-day PD at the middle high school on October 7th and February 15th. Also part of our monthly staff meetings will be also incorporating executive functioning strategies into that. I didn't include that in it because that's just part of the meeting. We did a training last Friday for new special education staff, understanding our IEP software and presenting at team meetings. The team chair people will be going to hopefully to the LRP, which is Legal Resource Publications Institute on Legal Issues of Educating Individuals with Disabilities. It's a 3-day, it says 4 days there, but it's actually 3 days in April. And then on November 9th and 10th, we have 6 people that will be going from the middle school level, and I believe there are 4 people that are going from the Deer Hill level, and I haven't got the numbers on Osgood, but this is for the PBIS workshop that is put on by the May Institute, and that will be held, that's in Norwood, 4 Points, and that's a 2-day workshop on implementing that. And then we are going to have our legal counsel for special education do an overview and updates to the Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. So that will be for the 504 coordinators in the buildings and building principals.
Save the best for last on that one.
And then our educational support personnel, our first meeting, which will be the half day, will be confidentiality and understanding learning disabilities presentation. The full day, the full day in November, we're gonna do a safety care recertification for people that had been certified last year and are willing to come in on that full day PD. We're gonna do executive functioning tools and strategies, an ADHD presentation and strategies that support learners, behavior intervention strategies, supporting students in inclusive settings, sensory integration, data collection at the elementary school level, and transition tools at the secondary level. So those are our PD days.
Question, Mary, on
Sure.
the ESPs, given that your teacher and your specialists have kind of a separate schedule, who actually does who actually runs the curriculum for the ESPs on those days?
So we've set up, we have people that we're using from within the district, so I'm doing the confidentiality understanding along with Laurie Dolan.
Okay.
Safety care certification is done by Jackie Potter and Laurie Dolan. Executive functioning strategies, Meredith Whalen and Caitlin Stromberg, the school psychologists here, are going to spearhead that. I haven't secured an ADHD presentation. I've talked to a couple of different people, so I'm just waiting to see who we can have do that. Behavior intervention strategies is being done by our BCBA, Jackie Potter. Supporting students in inclusive settings, I'm going to use information from Jim Schillinglaw, who's going to do our program evaluation at the middle school, recommendations that he has. And the sensory integration workshop will be done by our occupational therapist. Data collection is going to be done again by Jackie Potter, and the transition tools for secondary is going to be led by Meredith Whalen and Lisa Capabianco.
So it's largely internal, but you're
is
targeting one person from the staff to really lead those.
Yeah. So what I did was I put out an email to people that I felt would be comfortable with doing that, and so people volunteered to do this. So there was no real peer pressure, but so the first one that we'll be doing, we're going to do the confidentiality, which just talks about sort of how ESPs should be communicating or not communicating with parents, sort of understanding how IEPs should be handled. And then we're going to watch, it's about understanding learning disabilities, and it's called Fat City Beyond the Classroom. So it's FATS, and it puts the adults in the position of somebody that has a learning disability, and so it puts you sort of in a real life situation. It was filmed in the 70s, so the hairdos and the clothes, the big lapels, and sort of the wavy hairdo. But Rick Lavoie is the person who presented it. And, it's a great way to sort of, sit in somebody's shoes that struggles with learning. So I've seen it a lot, and I really, I think it's a great resource. So I'm hoping that they enjoy it. And then. Oh, it really is from the 70s. Honestly, Barbara,
This is a money-making opportunity to make an update, right?
He actually did. He has another one that's called Beyond Fat City. So I have Fat City, and then I have Beyond Fat City, but you really have to watch the first one too. But it's like early 80s, so it's still So he was, Rick Lavoie, I think, was he ran Riverview School for a little bit. So it is a great presentation, and if somebody's interested in watching it is a DVD, so if you're interested, I'm glad to share it. And then the focus areas for this year at the middle high school, providing the direct instruction for executive functioning. That would be in both of the learning centers. We have our 9th, 10th grade learning center, and then we have an 11th, 12th. So providing that direct instruction with the resources that we have, that people learned about in our presentation or our training this summer. And I've also purchased an executive functioning assessment tool, and then as well some of the resources that they had thought, strategies on using the Cornell note-taking method, and then sort of how to start research papers. So some resources that Landmark really recommended for kids that were struggling. At the conclusion of the program evaluation for the middle high school special education services, so that's October 17th and 18th, Jim Schillinglaw will be coming in. So use those recommendations to enhance the special education programming at the middle high school level. At the middle high school level, I want to be able to design a successful inclusive school-wide programming. So looking so that we can keep kids more in the general ed setting and that we're not pulling kids out as much for learning centers. I think that if we can start to teach kids the strategies in order to organize themselves, when they 90 minutes a cycle, they could be taking an elective or using the learning center a little bit less. So that would be a goal, because a lot of the research says the more the kids are included in the general ed setting, the better they are. I also have some research from Thomas Hare, who did a program evaluation for the state of Massachusetts. And he's got some nice research papers. It's HEHIR. He's a professor at Harvard, but he was employed by the U.S. Department of Education, and then he did an evaluation with schools in Massachusetts. So his research really is compelling to be able to keep our kids in the classroom as much as possible. At the elementary school level, increase our use of social thinking strategies, so that's our bubble, and using whole body lessons, whole body listening. Louise was lucky enough to see Michelle Curtin at the Joseph Osgood School do a social thinking lesson, and her listening skills have improved. So it's just it's a great strategy to address learners at all different levels. Also supporting and evaluating and monitoring the progress of the STARS program, which is down at the Osgood School, and then also looking at our new preschool programming. So we have the 2 preschool classes with our peer models. All preschool tuitions have been paid, as well as lunch bunch. So that was something nice. So we have peer models in the AM and the PM class, and then we also have, I believe it's 6 or 7, I can't remember whether it's 6 or 7 peer models that are also in our lunch bunch. So that, looking at that programming, and then district-wide improve the knowledge for staff when educating students with disabilities. So looking at sort of, I'm looking to improve our goal development, and then how we're implementing the services within the classroom. And then I didn't have it on there because it really is, I don't want to include it just as a special education, but PBIS is really, we're working in collaboration with general education. So CEF provided funding for Deer Hill and Osgood for the PBIS over the last few years. And then our grants that are written, the 274 grant, which is the special ed professional development, is being geared towards social emotional learning in PBIS, which, at a middle school, high school level, hopefully decreases referrals to the office, improves tardiness, more on-task behavior, and just provides those positive interventions for kids. And it's more proactive as opposed to reactive.
The survey for the middle high school, and I think I sent you that email, was completed today, I believe, and there are munchkins and bagels waiting for everybody in the morning, I understand, as payment for filling out the teachers, for filling the survey, and that's coming out, that's their initial PBIS. So when I can get a little bit more information from those who are spearheading that, I have to say, and I have to give Michelle Curtin some kudos, she was absolutely wonderful. I watched a kindergarten class as she taught listening, whole body listening, and I felt I needed to improve. But I do know crisscross applesauce. I really do that. She was wonderful. It was a rather lively group. Some who really needed crisscross applesauce, and it was wonderful. She's doing a great job.
Yes.
So it's great.
That's just a little bit about PBIS. So May Institute is who we are using for our training at, so we have the same trainer all the way from Osgood up into the middle school. And then we're using May Institute, and May Institute is also sponsoring the workshop that we're going to in November. So that's just a little bit about it, so. You can put a face to the acronym. Sure.
So, for the program evaluation at the middle high school, when will you be coming back to present about the results for that?
So Jim Schulenweiler is coming in, I think I said the 17th and 18th, because I put in my classes open looking again. But, so he'll be in, and he hopes to have the evaluation back to me before we start the sort of real, not the real budget process, sorry for using those words, but, you know, the nuts and bolts. So, if you were making recommendations, you know, to, change something, then, that would be, I would think that we would have it by the 1st of November. I would like to be able to share it with, school committee by, a December, meeting.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. Well, I know, oh, and thank you. We got a phone today. I have a phone.
Yay.
You can call me. I don't know the number.
You don't need to know the number.
Find the number, you can call me. Bart and the entire crew, were you here all weekend? It's been great, including Carolyn walking through the hallway with the big bell that was awarded to her from Boston Latin, ringing the bell at open house with no bells, no intercom, and we struggled through, but
The bells and the intercom worked at last night's open house.
we had
Great.
phones. Yes, they had phones.
Yep.
So we now have phones. They sound like announcers, though. It's great. It's a whole different voice. But and despite all that, Bart has been meeting the needs of all of those individual students and teachers. And what was it? There were, did I hear 400 help desk messages, or it was 200 down to 100, or some ridiculous number.
Yeah, too many to count.
Too many to count.
Over 200
So
messages.
they've all been working hard. So he's here to report to you. Thanks for coming. Are you going back to work after?
But I was crazy busy, it wasn't even married. But the help desk, that's one thing that we're trying to push, is to get people to actually interact with us and let us know when there's issues, because it seems like in the past, they just gave up hope or something.
Yeah. They complained a lot, but nothing ever happened,
Yeah.
because they didn't complain to the right people, so.
So yeah, the summer went by pretty fast. Kind of hard to believe that we're only 2 weeks into the school year here too. And I know the last school committee meeting, Louise gave an IT summer activities update to you guys, so I figured I'd give you an update of the update. And the middle high school, all the old networking switching gear, it's all been replaced, turned off, completely removed. So at all the schools now, we're running on all updated switching gear, which is great. And also at the high school, middle school, over the summer, we put 70 new arrow high access points out. And they've been installed, cable configured, or in use. That means now all the schools are running all new wireless equipment, and all old wireless gear has been turned off. The 80 equity Chromebooks, part of the digital learning initiative, are the last update I gave you, they were in our office. They've now been enrolled in GAP, the Google's apps for education. And also requested sped iPads for IEPs were all configured and given out to the schools. Those iPads will be managed by our AirWatch and the camera project here. All cameras are functioning now. And we have an issue with 3 of them recording, but we have a support ticket with that vendor. And I'd say the last but not least are the phones, which right now there's 111 phones been installed and are functioning in the classroom and offices at CMHS.
Is that 111? Okay.
And we've reached out to teachers today to make sure that they do, that nobody got missed. The floor plans aren't exactly the same as some of the classrooms, so. And tomorrow I'm meeting with the vendors head of the project. Some of the things left to address is the implementation of E911 system, which is scheduled to take place this Friday. And turn on the auto attendant menus. So they'll have the menus now, because now they have all the extensions where they can go to. And the user training, which that's not done this week, it'll be done at the beginning of next week. And I'd also like to add that the new phone system vendor, Harbor Networks, is really easy to work with, especially under the condensed timelines that we've had to work with them. And look forward to working with them in the future here. And I think we made a lot of changes the last 2 months, and with all the new systems and gear, configurations have been changed that done really well. There's a few bumps that we've had, but that was expected. And I just think that we're actually where we want to be now. We need to get to.
We're actually ahead of where we wanted to be because of the phone staff.
Right.
Yeah, that was a dent in the last 2 weeks. I think Mike's demo was a great example of what people can do now. Pleased to see that too.
That's great.
I'm very excited, and Bart took time to come to a leadership meeting yesterday, and I felt very guilty because he did get to review the policies that we have tonight, so we did get his input, which is very valuable. So thank you for that. I'm amazed. I'm walking through the hallways, I'm amazed at how many devices are out, and what's going on, and what teachers are asking for, and the leadership yesterday had definite ideas and a list, priority list. So we went over the priorities that we were going, and we were Sue meets with Bart, Ron, and the principal, assistant principals at the middle high school once a week. Sue wants to sit on Wednesdays, so that they're all on schedule, on target, and we discuss what's been done. And, I think you minimize that, how much time and devotion you've given to really teachers using the digital devices. And Sue's been right in the trenches looking, and as late as 6 o'clock today, when she really should have been home, she was looking for speakers for November, and it's rolling. It's very exciting.
I'd say the teachers are very enthusiastic about it overall too.
That's good. Good to hear.
And I hear Cassie is now putting, I'm not sure what it is, no Google or on Google? One Google? Something. And Pearson, I see the emails, but they're going back and forth on, can you help me put that in my classroom? Can you help me put Pearson Classroom in? And she's been working after school hours, helping those teachers put all of that up and going. So it's rolling.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just got one question on the phones. Nathan Redmond, 44 staff. Did you use ShoreTel, which I think was going to be the vendor of choice for the town-wide network?
Right, yeah. Yeah, we really lucked out at the time because it was already closed out.
Right. And then, so where did the budget line item come from for this install? Given that it was sort of an emergency
I'm very
maintenance item?
poor.
And then it's going to the advisory.
Right.
It's going to advisory
Going to
learning.
advisory.
You're gonna ask for money from the reserve?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. We work with Chris Senior,
Good
and
point.
chair the advisory committee for this.
Excellent. Good to hear.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
There are a couple of
Before we get
dates
some
in-
sleep.
My first piece of mail when I took on this title was a registered mail. which I thought came every day, for the playground at Deer Hill. And as you know, there was a complaint filed with the Architectural Board of Massachusetts for the manufactured wood chips that are on the ground. And what was the request was that we peel back some of those wood chips and form a 4-foot path to all the equipment on any kind of material that was non-slippery for access. And the alternative was to pour liquid rubber through the entire area. And they wanted it done by the 19th of September. If you've been to the playground today,
No
you didn't
pressure.
have to fly. To the tune of almost, I worked with Ted Carroll at that point, and by the time I connected with Ted Carroll in the recreation, he said that the Pratt Library had also received a complaint for the same thing. Beechwood has also since then received it, as we did at Osgood. So I now know what certified mail looks like. And what we worked with, great resources with Ted and Bob Egan, the building inspector, walked Deer Hill initially and looked and couldn't quite figure out what they were asking us to do. Ted had great resources. We reached out to Norwell. In their situation, it became even more severe. They have an OCR complaint that they're dealing with the same kind of, it appears that someone went from playground to playground, didn't like the swings and complained, I don't know. But to the tune of almost $20,000 per playground to replace those kinds of wood chips. So we had many conversations with Chris Senior, with Ted Carroll, with and Brian, anybody who would listen. And Mark Kelly also walked with us. And we've come to some kind of an agreement. I filed for variance, which we can, obviously extending beyond September 19th. I've received written notification for Osgood, and I asked for 2 years because we were looking at a playground that we wanted to replace. They've given us 1 year to the first day of school next year. But since the person at the board that I've been speaking to said he would work with us, I would think that if we show progress, if we show plans and so on, we have, Ted was very great. I think Nancy White, who was the consultant on all of this, from Norwell, has been here with Ted, and she did look at the playground at Deer Hill the other day, Monday or Tuesday. So we're working it through. I did call the board and asked what was going on with Deer Hill that I had not heard. He said it's in the mail, and that was last Friday, so I think he's walking here. But he claims that we have until the 15th of August, 2017, which is a year. I did say that I didn't want any of the workers on the ground who were not fingerprinted and quarried, and I did not want them around while children needed the playground, which included the recreation in the summer. Anything that would be within school time. And I suggested that April vacation might be a doable time, but they've given us till August. I also think that if we show movement there, but Chris Senior seems to think that we could do that, and that there is funding through the Community Preservation Commission with their 3% allotment to recreation, and they were very generous when they built the Deer Hill Playground. I did suggest and mentioned at advisory when we sat there that I would put that amount on capital request because we would be counting on fundraising for the Osgood Playground, and that if we fell short, we couldn't meet that need. So it may be a placeholder, I'm not sure, but at this point I can't put my money on it. The other piece is I was at the PSO meeting at Osgood, their first meeting, and I did mention to Sarah Sweeney, I mentioned to anyone there were about 40 parents there, that I would, and Amanda was there, that we would like that to be a priority, and they seem to have taken that on very graciously. So we're hoping that it's going to happen one way or another. There have been accidents at the playground at Osgood with children hitting their heads on an archway or several things. We had walked the playground this summer with Lisa and had replaced some of the mats that are around there, and had met with Mark and asked that some of the stairwell where it's peeling back on steel and all of those things were temporarily safe. So everything is safe, it's usable, but the playground needs to be replaced. It needs to be better for very young children and for that age group of K2. It's also in very direct sun, which concerns me a bit, and it's near the sidewalk area. I would like to move it over at a safer piece with maybe some shade or some construction that supplies that shade for health reasons for those little kids. So it's in the talking stage, it's encouraging. Initially it was startling, but those are the updates. I just wanted to, if I reach anything else, I will call again to get a written confirmation about Deer Hill, or send Mrs. Joyce, who is going to the board in Boston and ask for an email. Yes?
And just to clarify, so is it for, is it to put in the walkways, so there'd be the walkways and then wood chips, or is it a complete pour?
We can have a 4-foot path to all the equipment, 3 feet unobstructed. That's the requirement. It may be better for us to pour the rubber. We're not sure. I really have to reach with Nancy White, who's the consultant we're looking for, and get estimates and safety, and if we're going to do it right. There are mixed reviews. There are some playgrounds that have maintained that floor, that covering really very well, even in the direct sun. I don't know if it's the depth, material, or the time of year in which it was put. Others are cracked.
Right.
So we really want to do all our research.
I think I was at the playground one of the days when, I don't know if it was Nancy, but it was someone who was observing the playground for these purposes and taking pictures of everything, and there was a group of parents there. So this is not,
Was this recent?
Yeah, like maybe, last week. But, so this is not any kind of official data or anything, but the small sampling of parents there. One person was commenting about the poured surfaces, that she said she won't let her child go there. She says when it's hot, it smells, and we were just talking about safety, which I know nothing about, but I want to make sure that we had a complete understanding of
That there was an odor to the poured rubber?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
I mean, I personally do not like that kind of thing. And I was looking up last night about, I don't know if it's any better, they put all sorts of chemicals in like the packed wood surfaces that, I forget what it's called exactly, but it's like a pressurized wood that they can have on the surfaces. Who knows if that's any better? It probably.
It has to be totally non-slip.
Right.
That's the issue, and I'm not sure that would fit the bill. We have to look.
Because I was wondering about the pathways, and then, because there's also a caveat, this person said that if your wood chips are maintained properly, then you're fine. So
I did ask about that.
So,
with
which
the
is
board.
interesting, but it's kind of like, well, who's gonna make sure the wood chips are always in, evenly spread and everything?
It's not just evenly spread, it has to be packed down once a day and very packed down to
Right.
the point of resupplying those wood chips. And when we were told of that, Mark's face just kind of dropped.
Right.
It's not a doable thing. It's
Not with all the stuff
not
that
an
goes
option.
on every day.
I'm surprised that the surface option is rubber with all the controversy about
I am too.
the rubber on turf fields. I realize it's a different kind of substance, but
That's why
it kind of
I
feels a
think
little
it's money well spent to have this advisor who has worked in just playgrounds and has worked in construction companies that have built playgrounds. And she has made quite a reputation for herself as someone very, very reliable. She's actually given suggestions on moving some of the equipment at Deer Hill to be safer or better angled or those kinds of things. So she's very knowledgeable, and Ted speaks very highly of her. The finance people in Norwell have been thrilled with what she's done.
yes, Katie.
Just one quick comment. I appreciate you taking the time to study, especially with the consultant, what the right remediation is for Deer Hill, so we get it right. And we may have
Thank you, Jean.
options, or we may not have options after we go through all of that in terms of the choices we make. I guess from a timing perspective, if you were trying to get it done as early as April, that would mean that the request would have to go into special town meeting in November. So part of me thinks that perhaps taking the extra time to study and including that in May town meeting, which is usually when CPC funds, that may be just the reality, because I'm not sure how we would fund it in April.
I have no anticipation of April.
Okay.
I know that was
Ideal.
my recommendation to the board. I don't think that's a good time. There may be rain, there may be snow, there may be frost, and it may not happen, and we've run
Okay.
head first into trying to get something done that we're hurrying for. I'd rather take my time and give them updates and hope that they work with us over time.
So
I'm not nervous about a year and a half or two. I think that I could possibly reason with them in that we want to do it correctly. So I'm not looking at an early time.
So,
We-
Deer
we
Hill
wanna-
next summer.
We wanna make sure we get it right. We don't wanna rush to.
I think it may be moving rec to Osgood as opposed to working with that piece for a while. We're also going to be replacing tiles in that building, so we may work it out for a short period of time. It's all in what would be recommended. It's just that I did not want to rush and report things without all the facts. And at this point, we have that variance, we have the time, and I think they will work with us. Be good for you. The grade 6 survey, we talked about the digital, all set?
Yes, thank you.
We talked about the digital survey of getting a more accurate count of what digital devices could come to school and back for our 6th graders. And it's my concern that the initial survey seemed to prove that we maybe would not have very many come in. So, given the upheaval of the beginning of the year, during open house last week, I raced upstairs and said, okay, so where's the survey? And Carolyn went, ah! So it was just one of those chaotic times. But we did get little index cards, and we did get a sign, and we did get pens, and we did get a basket to put it outside the auditorium. And without the red ribbon around me, I just said, do you have a child in the 6th grade? Come here. You have the report. We have about 46% of the parents who actually reported in. There are actually a surprising larger number than I anticipated have iPads to bring to school and back. 13 of the 67 parents said they had nothing at all. Another number, about 12, had either Nooks or Kindles. So the proposal with Carolyn when we spoke after that was giving it as a homework assignment for the 6th grade, that they would go home, give the form to mom and dad, bring it back, and get credit for, yay, I did my homework. The 6th grade teacher, English teacher, or one teacher did it, passed it out today, so they've gone home tonight. However, there's a class that was off the rotation for today, so it's going to take a couple of days. So hopefully I'll have that by the end of the week, but it looks like we will have to supply Chromebooks for grade 6, but not as many as we anticipated, which is the great news. I don't know if we have to get keyboards for the iPads, but as soon as I have all of that, working on it. So I didn't want to give you that update.
Did I show you the portable keyboard that I
Yes.
bought?
I thought that the one that went on the iPhone.
It connects with you can use it with an iPhone, you can use it with an iPad, anything, any
Right.
Bluetooth device you
Right.
can connect to.
The-
And they're very reasonably priced. It was
I
like
think it was-
$35.
I thought it's a great device. It's just what the teachers want from a viewing point needs to be bigger. And where we're doing, ultimately, in 2019, we have to do all, by lack of another name, MCAS 2.0
Yeah.
digitally. We really should look at getting a good screen.
Just one quick comment. So thank you. I think getting the complete picture is so important as we're trying to make a decision and then bring that data to capital budget to continue the conversation. I think it is right to wait another 2 weeks or whatever. I did go back and look at the information that Bart and Ron presented at capital budget at the end of August, and just so, and I circulated it to the full committee, but just so folks know, when we put together the plan, we had put in, numbers for the various leases for the iPads, Chromebooks, and the devices, at the middle high school. The Deer Hill and Osgood iPads are pretty much at what we had expected. The Deer Hill Chromebooks, because of Chromebook pricing, and probably great negotiating by Ron and Bart, came in $6,500 less on an annual basis in terms of the lease, if I understand Ron's numbers correctly. And at the middle high school, for the for the 80 that they actually leased, it was $5,000 annually versus the $10,000 that we had requested and received in capital appropriations. That's a long-winded way of saying that there is lease money that is not being used for fiscal 17. I'm not recommending that we go off and purchase more devices than we've told capital that we were going to, but I think it opens a conversation around the fact that the good news is that we've spent less, and on the flip side, we might need to modify the plan, so I think there's some flexibility there. That was my only.
Thank you. It's also something that I really don't want to rush out and buy for grade 6 yet, because there are so many iPads reported from home that I would like to hear from the teachers whether it would be easier if we went to a tablet, or is it going to work, and how are they going to work for both? I say Chromebooks, but I want to work with the teachers and what they're doing for lessons first. I think we go slowly.
Yep. We're in a good position.
I think so too. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay. All right, so the next section is school committee comments and communications. And the first item is reading of policy IJNDC, internet publication, and that's a second read.
May I address you for a minute?
Absolutely.
At the leadership meeting yesterday, as I said, I presented these policies that we had been discussing and working on, and I had asked Bart and Ron to meet with me and go over them. They were so busy with the phones that at leadership yesterday, we went over them and getting another perspective from the classroom and the buildings. So they have made a few comments on these, if that's acceptable to you. That first one was IJNDD. DC.
By the way, I love the new read. It's a great new format.
Of the way the policy is?
Yeah, no, I think it reads much cleaner than to me, it read more modernized.
Yes.
It didn't,
The old purpose was a disaster.
yeah, didn't explain why the World Wide Web was a good idea.
They were fine with this one.
Yeah.
This was not an issue.
I only had one question, under content standards. The first sentence, it says, the school department or staff members that creates a page is responsible for the content, currency, and maintenance of that page. And I circled currency, cause that.
It's not money.
No.
Yeah,
It's being current.
Timely.
Oh, is it?
Timeliness.
Currency, okay. I was
Yeah.
like, are we selling, is this like an online shopping? Gotcha.
See, that's how we get half our revenue.
Exactly.
You may pay for this page.
All right, thank you. I was not reading
I
it
can
that
see
way,
what you mean.
obviously.
And is this one of the ones that?
No, they were fine with this
Okay.
one.
All right.
It's fine.
So does anybody have any other questions?
The only other comment I had is that I don't think in any of our policies we have the Roman numeraling. My suggestion was just to delete it. The ones that we're looking at, I don't know if we do in other places, we don't.
Some of the policies, like EDCA, some of the
Okay, for
technology
mixed, then I wouldn't-
policies.
Yeah, they come from
Okay.
a variety of places, so.
I do have one comment on this. In IJNDD, and it has that last paragraph where the superintendent or designees may monitor the website to see personnel, et cetera. But disciplinary action, et cetera. I had, and it was suggested that appear on all the policies, that it be consistent, that the responsibility is the same for school principals and disciplinary action, including termination, that whole paragraph.
Wait, where is that? Sorry.
It's on the,
It's on the next one.
IJNDD at the bottom,
Oh, right.
superintendent or designees.
So at this
May monitor.
Yeah, we-
paragraph.
That same paragraph on all the, policies for technology.
And you're suggesting we just kind of stick it at the end?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
These are also going to be added to the mutual district handbook, the employee handbook that we talked about. We also decided that all of these policies would go out to the staff along with, notification that the substance abuse policy is posted, which we need to do for the state, the one that is already posted.
Yeah.
That we need to notify teachers and parents that that's there. And, that was going to be coupled with this, that that's available, and we suggest that parents view that as well as the other and combine the two.
Okay. Any other comments? No? Okay, so this is the second read of this policy, and I would suggest that we not have a third read. And in order to facilitate that, we approve it with the addition of that last paragraph. Make sense? Yes. Okay, so with that, could I have a motion to approve file IJNDC with the appropriate edit?
So
So- Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do I have, can I have a vote, please?
I, Barbara,
Approval,
second.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
It's getting late. Okay, the next policy is use of social media sites and electronic communication, and that paragraph is great at the back, at the end of this one.
This created a lot of discussion.
Okay.
Can I just preface this real quick? I called Mask, this week, and I said, hi, I'm working on some of the technology policies, and I have a question about IJNDD, and she said, it's open on my desk at the moment. It's one of the ones we're reviewing, so, it just, for general information, they recognize that this one is constantly changing, and they are adjusting it right now, so we kind of, sort of came up with what we thought was, because a lot of the things I asked questions about that the committee had asked, they are addressing. So we're definitely on the right track of what we had questions about. But we figured we'd try to get a policy in place, and it's in a decent chance that it gets looked at again if they come up with something that we
Yeah,
didn't
we need
consider.
the policy, that's the bottom line.
But at any rate, there might be some relative things that.
Actually, it came down to A under one, because there was a large discussion about friends, because we unfriend, refriend on
Right.
Facebook, so that the connotation changes,
Right.
all of that. And that, telephones were also a situation where we use our phones for everything. This did seem like it needed to be reviewed and redone, and that was the kind of the discussion. But one, we decided might change into a little bit different and more encompassing, where staff members may not list or connect with current students on non-academic networks. So it'd be staff members may not list or connect with current students on non-academic networks, which would include all social media, and it would also, it appears that there are alum who are in connection with staff who are currently here. They're now citizens, so that was, we wanted current students in here. And that was the large one. The second was all e-contact with students should be through the district's computer and telephone system. Seemed a little archaic, and they felt that we should throw it out, because we do use phones, we do contact with students there, and we use Twitter. It just seemed that there was no way to really fix this one. So I don't know how you feel about that.
E-contact,
Well, there's
makes it
also.
sound
Well,
naughty.
There was a possibility, if we needed to keep B, that it would look as such. all e-contacts with students should be through the administrative approved sites, except emergency situations. And it was administrative instead of district computer because, if it had to go through central office, that would be, have to go to assistant principal, have to be approved, it would have to be approved list. And someone was afraid of possible repercussions from that. Like, you didn't give it to me beforehand, how dare you, you're chain of command. So administrative seemed more general.
It's kind of ironic considering we're having kids bring in their own devices.
Right.
And yet and we all are connected with our phones, and through business and personal, they overlap. There's no, I don't know about the rest of you, but.
As I said, this was a
Yeah, how many
huge
phones?
discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah. They really felt we should just throw B out. Actually, A, B, C, D, but particularly B.
Well, D is appropriate. That covers everything.
And the
Yeah, I
other-
guess, it's kinda curious what we're trying to, what we're really trying to prevent honestly is D.
Yep.
Right.
It's a fraternization policy, really. It's like half that and half.
Right, but
The
I don't.
suggestion was that we would delete A, B, C, and D, and that improper fraternization was enough.
Right.
That any adult who does not understand that should go to D.
I do like the modifications to A personally, cause I think it clarifies some interesting points about current students and, but I agree with the problem around B.
Yeah, I could get rid of B and I could get rid of C.
Yeah, I could go with that. I mean, I think D is pretty much, D is such an umbrella. It's,
I think A
and you
and
can
B.
get in an argument within it, but
It just seemed that A and D, with the preface of A, seemed to encompass what we wanted.
Yeah.
Well, then, why don't we just include A and D as sentences in
Right.
number one?
Yep.
Again, as suggested, with the suggested edits. And just, as I said, eliminate B and C, and eliminate the letters A and D, and just have it be part of that first paragraph.
This is also, you had just said, you're gonna send it out to parents as well. If you say school personnel can't give out their private cell phone or home phone numbers, you have staff members talking to kids. You don't want parents to say that's a violation,
It became very tricky with the use of our phones.
Yeah.
And that was the discussion around this entire policy.
Yeah.
Was that it seemed archaic. It didn't address the movement that we have toward using technology.
It's the fraternization, it's not the connection that
Right.
we're trying to
Right.
limit,
Right.
Zero. Proper connection, we're all for it.
Right.
Okay, so do we want to have one more read on this one, or when do you think you were going to, send out?
We were hoping to have these policies out quickly because the Metco Chromebooks are waiting to be distributed.
Okay.
So she'd really like to have all the policies
Okay.
out.
All right, so then why don't we do as we did with the last one? And I would accept a motion to approve use of social media sites and electronic communication, with the edits that had been recommended this evening.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
I think the language at the bottom that you added, that this policy will be reviewed on a regular basis, not only covers us because MASC may be changing, but if there is feedback or developing situations, it allows us to kind of say, yeah, we know that this may be one we reopen.
Okay, so the next one, access to digital resources, file IJND. Were there, comments on this one, Louise?
No.
Okay. Anybody have any questions or comments on this?
Yeah, it was interesting, cause I went to my old book, and it used to be called Curriculum and Instruction, Access to Electronic Media.
Oh, that's
It
fun.
used to be
Yes.
the name, it used to be the name of the policy.
Yeah.
Let's see, what did I
On the
comment on?
Children's Internet Protection Act.
Yeah, that's all new, which I think is great. Okay, the fourth bullet point there, unauthorized disclosure, use, and dissemination of personal information regarding minors. It used to be restricting minors' access to materials harmful to them, which is weird. And the old policy also said there'd be one public hearing or meeting to address and communicate its internet safety measures. That was the old policy. The new policy just says provide reasonable notice to address and communicate. Which I'm not advocating we have a public hearing on
I
this,
think it's
but
because it's in the handbook and it's signed off.
Yeah.
They
Right,
sign
and
it.
sending it off to
Right.
parents,
Yeah,
families.
it's a sign off
I
in
think
the student handbook.
is good. Are we going to add, hold on a minute.
I had two questions.
Okay, I'm just looking at. Okay, if we have no more, you have a
I have,
question?
just two questions. On the second page, under responsibility for damages, I mean, it's the same as it read in the last one, now that we've got all these devices in the district, I was reading it, and we changed the title to digital resources, I was reading it through a different lens. And we haven't really, I mean, obviously, this policy says that if Johnny breaks the iPad, whether it was a mistake or not, Johnny's parents pay for it.
There was large discussion around that.
Yeah.
Because many of the iPads are given with students with special needs.
Yeah.
And it goes back and forth.
Yep.
The grant for Metco has purchased grants for that population, and it's through the grant, and it's for them, and it goes back and forth. That was a very interesting conversation.
And even in the schools, I mean.
How do we do that? How do we say it was malicious, careless, or just plain accidental,
Right.
and oh my. So the dividing lines became very muddled.
So when we have,
Go ahead.
in the last month, we had a credit, so to speak, for a lost book that was returned. So we do have somewhat of a policy. I don't know if the policy encompasses a damaged book, like where the spine is broken, and does the student or the family have to pay for it? Or do we have a policy on athletic equipment that the school owns, that gets handed out to an athlete and then returned, or not returned or lost? Do we, because I kind of see it all as the same
Yeah.
thing. What is the responsibility of the student / parent for school-owned equipment? And it should be consistent in premise, but specific to each area.
When I read this paragraph, I think it's an individual situation, very much like discipline or anything else. And I would be more comfortable with the language of may be required to. So we had individuals may be required to reimburse.
Yeah.
So then there's an option for decision and consideration.
Because when we talked about during the budget cycle with Bart and Ron, one of the things that we put in place was a small amount of money for break fix, knowing that a screen could crack or, and we needed to have money available to address those. Other communities have addressed this in the past through a technology fee as a way of funding that source of funds for break fix. Other communities have required required, if it was a one-to-one device and it was going back and forth to school, they were requiring the parents to get insurance, which is, you know, $60 a year or something like that, so basically was the fee. We haven't taken any of the steps I feel much more comfortable with, maybe, in part because we also have the.
I think it's kinder.
Yeah.
I think it allows for that human element. And perhaps that was just someone knocked it off my desk and I didn't do it or whatever. It just allows for some conversation.
In a previous version with the last policy subcommittee, which was Mrs. McGoldrick and me, we did have a technology use fee. It was minimal, $25. And we felt that that could be used, like it could be like a revolving fund that could be used as an insurance policy against damage to the devices. We were advised that it wouldn't float here. I don't know.
Well, other schools have done that.
Mhm.
It's a bookkeeping nightmare.
Right.
And it would rest with our bookkeeper who's already
Right.
overworked. That would be my biggest concern.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll change the language a little bit and see how it goes the first year and then maybe make a determination at the end of the year.
The other thing that I had was, this permission agreement form on the first page. I was struggling with what this is. A written parental request shall be required prior to the student being granted independent access to electronic media involving district technology resources. Is that the AUP that we're referring
That's
to?
the form in the handbook that students and parents sign.
Okay. This
That's
document should be
currently in all
kept
the
on
handbooks.
file as a legal and binding document. In order to modify or rescind the agreement, the student and parent must provide a superintendent with a written request. I read this and I'm like, what the heck is this? Is this the yellow page that I signed
Yes.
Yes.
3 weeks ago?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
The one I.
Cause I was having trouble translating that.
The
to-
one that
Yeah,
has-
exactly,
yes.
okay, so
Right.
that's,
Exactly.
that's this, okay.
Any other questions? No? Okay. So do I have a motion to approve access to digital resources, file IJND with, the edit to the responsibility for damages section?
I think this was the first reading.
Yes.
Oh, was this one?
Yes, this is
Oh,
first reading.
okay, it is
Get to read
first
it-
reading,
get to read
okay,
it
so,
again.
yeah.
And I will add that note,
Okay, great.
the one from I.
And then it'll be ready to go.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
And the next one's the same.
So first reading.
So, empowered digital use policy,
Still don't understand.
IJNDB. Any questions?
This brought some laughter and some questions.
So,
Really?
this is where I hit the wall with
Yeah.
these policies, cause I said,
Yeah,
wait a second.
well, that's why I don't know what's first read and what's the second read
Well,
anymore.
cause we have the AUP, then we have the access to digital resources, and then we have empowered digital use policy, and honestly, I was reading through it, and I felt like we'd already said a lot of this in other policies.
Well, really funny thing, Katie, because Mary and I tried to incorporate almost everything into one policy, and we were,
I think this is the
Yeah.
policy that some schools delete. Is that the one?
Well, because
I
the
don't know,
old
this policy
policies.
used to be like 8 pages long.
Yeah,
This
it's-
used
yeah,
to be the
yeah.
AUP.
Yes, I think some of the schools have deleted it from their policies.
So there's a district that totally shortened it and kind of thought, like, since this is
But,
was stated everywhere else in other policies to just.
then why do we need it?
The question was the empowered.
Yes. I know, I should just say digital
Empowered.
use policy.
MESC does still have this in
Yeah,
their,
so just-
I feel like this is
policy
the
manual.
belt of the suspenders.
And it's dated, was it that?
2015.
I don't know what else you
This is
to hold up your
Should hold up here, empowerment.
empowerment. I, by the time I got here, I was inclined to say, do we really need this, was my reaction.
Users shall give acknowledgement to others for their ideas and work.
That should also be changed to shall, in order to keep it aligned.
users shall give acknowledgement to others. It says that, actually.
Oh,
Sorry.
it's the third one, individuals will show, should be shall show.
Oh,
I guess
right,
they
right.
didn't want the alliterative piece of shall show.
Did you guys, talk to the MASC about how passionate they are about this
I
particular
did,
policy?
I did call,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
especially because our old policy was so different
Right.
from this one. And what their feeling was is that because this whole area is changing so rapidly, this is sort of a broad blanket policy to sort of lay out a sense of responsibility and how, digital devices were going to be handled. But they no longer wanted it to be as detailed as our old policy was, because it's meant to be more of an umbrella to sort of cover a rapidly changing, part of education.
This is the backstop to all the other policies.
Right.
Okay.
Essentially outdated.
Alright.
And
So
it
they're
made-
still recommending it? That's, and.
They are, and it
okay.
is still part of their manual.
Okay, so we'll put it on the agenda for the next time, Louise.
I wonder who came up with empowered, I'm just curious.
With that term.
Yeah, it'd just be a digital use policy, right? I don't even know what
I
empowered
think you're supposed to be
means.
taking ownership of it,
Okay.
of your approach to
Okay.
using digital resources.
Right. That makes sense, I guess.
Okay. Okay. So we'll put it on for the second read at the next meeting. Okay. So next is report from the subcommittees of the school committee. And does anybody have any, reports?
I have a couple.
You've been meeting a lot.
I did attend, the CPAC, meet and greet with Mary Buchanan and Welcome Coffee, last week, as well as a CPAC leadership meeting, that took place this week. And we have a new president of CPAC, Jenny Milanowski, who was here earlier. And she has really put together a great calendar of events, that everybody in the district is invited to attend and, encouraged to attend. The first one will be, October 4th. It's about basic rights. It's at 7 p.m. here in this room. Mary Buchanan, the Director of Student Services, will be speaking about, rights as they relate to special education. So just a reminder to go to the CPAC website and, read the calendar of what they have. Every month there will be a presentation. Some of them this year, which is new, will take place during the day, to encourage more, families or mothers and fathers that are home during the day to be able to attend, and some will take place in the evening, so it's kind of the first time that they're splitting it up, that way in terms of presentations. So, it's like, it's a must-see, as Jenny is saying, it's a must-see presentation year, so hopefully the public will come to those, presentations. And the next update I have is, I met with Louise and, John and the security subcommittee, with Ellen. We are moving forward and getting, a list pulled together for taking the priorities as presented by the Cohasset Police Department for security, and pulling those into a list of capital budget requests. And there will be a little bit of time involved in estimating some of the costs with those proposed projects. So we are all working as quickly as we can with Brian Joyce and Chris Senior, and Mark Kelly to pull together some pricing, and we will be meeting with capital as soon as we have that to present. I think that's all I have.
Anybody else? Katie?
Just quickly, last week, 3 meetings, CEF was great, you heard basically the great news coming there. Also met with, Elder Affairs as the liaison. They're now, they've been in their space 12 months, they continue to expand programming, and they, continue to articulate that they want to, expand the opportunities to collaborate with students, and so Louise, is going to bring that conversation to the district leadership, and at some point, we will bring that back to, Coral Grande, so that she gets some specific feedback, because they had started brainstorming on their own, and my initial reaction was, let's let this be pulled from the teachers, the students, if they're old enough in the secondary level, and, the administrators in terms of
what they're interested in doing versus what Elder Affairs is, brainstorming or suggesting, so we'll get feedback loop there. The capstone of Jean and my week last week was the long-range planning group meeting. And I did wanna quickly just update everybody on that. So, two quick handouts. One, this first one coming down, we don't need to look at, it's just a lovely comparison of the two legal paths that one could take under the special ed stabilization fund, which is now with the municipal modernization.
Excuse me, you may recall that at our last meeting,
We
we
talked about
agreed,
it,
we
yeah.
agreed to stick with
Yeah.
what we already had done.
Yeah, but this is, I just wanted to share with you guys a document, and I'm not gonna go through it tonight, it's just lays out the language side by side so that people can look at it. So the first agenda item that we had, last week was a discussion around the proposed reserve policy, and, we took them through the packet that we had reviewed with everyone in August, and it was a robust conversation.
You're being so politically
I am
correct.
being so kind. And I guess we got some feedback from members of advisory along with input from the community that the direction of the reserve fund should head towards limiting transfers out only when all of the financial resources of the schools had been depleted. And we had a really good conversation around why that, A, was not the intent of the original stabilization fund that we voted on at town meeting, and also why that was impractical for us to go through a forecasting process to demonstrate that every single penny had been wrung out of the system, whether it was special ed or other related, to justify. It was moving what was a conversation about a special purpose stabilization fund to a conversation more akin to the advisory reserve, which is, this is true emergency, we've got no cash to cover it. We already have one of those, and the intent on this was very different. Ultimately, and some of it, so that was one concern that was expressed. The other concern was who's gonna fund this, and there were opinions expressed that this should be self-funding from the schools only, like this is these are your students and your issues, and you either have the cash to fund this special purpose stabilization fund or you don't. And obviously, it harkened back to the conversation we had in the spring, which is that's something that we obviously want to support and will continue to support, but there are going to be limits, and there will be situations where a situation may present itself where we outstrip the fund or the resources of the school district, and that's the sole purpose for putting in place a fund that could be not only contributed to by the schools, but also contributed to by the town out of free cash flow. So, bottom line, we landed with some modifications to the transfer in language that I've highlighted in blue. After 2 hours of conversation, I think we got people comfortable to the point that we're back on the original policy with some modifications, that advisory would take this revised policy we're looking at tonight back to their committee for discussion, as with the Board of Selectmen. My sense with the Board of Selectmen is that they're ready to move quickly along the lines of the policy that you're looking at tonight. And with input from advisory and a vote from the Board of Selectmen, we're on the path to having this done well before special town meeting, where a warrant article would have to go on. The surprise of the whole evening was that at the end of the conversation, we did circle back to municipal modernization, and there was a surprising agreement that in the long term, that maybe going to the mechanism proposed under municipal modernization is in the long run is the right mechanism. So I guess we did lots of backflips, we rolled in the mud, and then all of a sudden we landed on our feet
Yeah,
with
it was odd.
congruence
to say the
around
least.
the policy as proposed with small tweaks, plus the fact that everyone in the room was in support eventually flipping over to the municipal modernization language, whether it's Maytown meeting or at some future date, but it's not right now. So the major tweaks to the language are only in the transfers in section, basically two concerns being addressed. First is that the towns and the schools will formulate a plan to restore the funds to the identified targeted should be targeted floor. If to the identified targeted ceiling, if the balance drops below to the targeted floor. So the inserted language is if. The second point, and this was really a compromise, was that the group wanted clarification around the fact that the first funding source will be free cash flow derived from the schools. It doesn't preclude in the third bullet point the fact that it may be transferred from the stabilization, may be transferred in the stabilization fund from free cash flow if deemed necessary, but the goal was that the schools would be contributing regularly to this with the ability of the town to top it off if we were to drop below the fund floor or in the case where we had an extraordinary event. So that's where we got the conversation to. But before I sent it on, I really did want A, to update people, and B, to get people's reactions.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so on that second bullet point, was that to be from all of the year-end surplus, or are we, is it at our discretion like we did this year with some being allocated to the fund and some being allocated to prepay and some being allocated to pre-purchasing?
We didn't get into that level of conversation. My point of view is that it's at our discretion.
Okay.
I personally think that going forward, we may get some pushback about splitting between prepaid and this fund. But in terms of our ability to prepay as we're legally able to prepay supplies if we so choose, it doesn't preclude us from that. But it says that the year-end surpluses will be the primary funding source. So it's up to us. In some senses, it puts the onus on us as to how rapidly we want to fund this towards the ceiling of $500,000.
Right, and which I think we'll get the sense of that as time goes on, and we see what the needs are. The account numbers on the transfers out. I apologize, I didn't bring last meeting's version. Is that required?
It's not.
Is that, or that's just for our reference? Because
I'm happy to take it out. I actually think it won some points with advisory that we've gone to that level of detail to think through it. So I hear you that it probably in the end it's overkill, but I guess we did get a little bit of credit for thinking through and
exactly what was acceptable to use the money for and what wasn't.
Right, and I think we're all in agreement on that, but all of these things are very individual. You know, to me, the headers are all very clear. They're all very crystal clear. Only on the ESP, they're not all one-to-one. So as I read this says that we only would support funding an ESP who is designated as a one-to-one, not as an additional special education ESP in the district. So say hypothetically, the 13 evaluations that we have going on now that Mary Buchanan spoke about earlier, all require services, and that service is in the form of an ESP, but not on a one-to-one basis. We would be precluded then under this policy from adding an ESP from this fund.
It should be, because this is an emergency fund from a student moving in or another student who requires that specialized need. What this language basically says is we should budget appropriately for classroom ESPs. with our population. Our population shouldn't grow by 13.
Okay.
In
So
one
it-
cohort.
Right.
In one cohort,
It's to
okay.
preserve, actually, it's to preserve both of us, to say, we will, in good faith, supply ESPs for our current population. But should we have one that requires one individual to that one person, we need to cover that.
Okay, all right. Okay. Can we go to the next
Yep.
page?
Yeah,
Okay, so then on the next page, the second bullet point, the school committee will create a budget for each of the 6 line items each year, and then we have to report against that. Yeah, going into the third bullet point.
Yeah.
And then 45 days prior to special or annual town meeting, deliver a report including these 6 special education expense line items to the town manager and town finance director for deliberation by the board of selectmen and advisory.
Yeah.
The report will compare the full year forecast of actual expenses versus the originally budgeted line item amounts.
So it's only when we're requesting a transfer out, and it's the justification for the transfer out is the way I looked at it.
Does that get us into any trouble, because you can identify the base, and then you can identify the difference, and then you can subdivide and figure out what the need is, and then you can tie it to a student, right?
If I remember correctly, the discussion was to keep it around the 6th and not specific to.
Yeah, maybe to a
Okay.
total, I would feel better about it, but.
I think
the-
that's what the discussion was, but it's not, obviously the memory lapse from
Yeah.
the exact.
Yeah, I just think, you know, if you present 6 line items, or 12 line items, or 20, and you have a budget, and then you have an actual and then a forecast,
Yeah.
you get into more, well, why did you budget it that way and not this way? And why are you over budget on this line item and not that line item? And if we take the aggregate of the things that we're saying, the 1, 2, 3, 4, these 6 items,
Yeah.
this is the budget, and this is the actual, and this is the forecast, and this is the need. We're not gonna get into the muck saying, well, why did you only budget it this way on this, do you know what I'm saying? It's gonna open up more conversation and less solution.
Yeah, no, I don't mind providing the aggregate. I do think that we will land out in some kind of qualitative conversation around the aggregate that may feel like muck, but it doesn't invite it in the same way that an individual reporting the 6 line items might. I mean, just, again, from the tenor of the room, my goal in being more specific was to try and create transparency and ease of facilitating the conversation.
Yeah, not constantly having to explain where it's going and why.
Yeah,
You know,
but I think.
it's there, but I get what Ellen's saying.
But I think after that conversation, I think we're damned if we do, we damned
Yeah.
if we don't, and maybe the best way to say is to aggregate it, and then if we do have.
Protects the identity of the individuals too.
Yeah.
We have such a small population.
Okay. Ellen, let me rework the language, and maybe I'll shoot you a quick email tomorrow and see if it reads better.
Okay.
But
We're just bringing it to a point.
oh yeah, sorry. Yes, sorry. I will.
Okay.
So, I guess I was in the depths of despair around 8:30 last Thursday, and by 9:15, I'm like, okay, I think we're gonna move forward.
Yeah.
I do believe we have the support of the Board of Selectmen on this.
Oh, I do.
And so I think it's just more about pressing the conversation forward, breathing through some of the conversations, and
Not letting your head spin off like mine was.
yeah. No, I bottom line, I think the work was appreciated,
Mhm.
the details
Oh, yeah.
appreciated, and the fact that we took the initiative
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get this done was appreciated, so let's just roll with that.
Yeah.
So I guess I will make the final tweaks, and I need to get this over to Chris so that Chris can shepherd it on to the Board of Selectmen agenda, and then advisory to advise. If I had my
way I'd have the board of selectmen conversation first,
Yeah.
but we'll see how that happens.
Kate, can I say,
Yeah.
will this entire policy appear in the warrant? Or will it be a
No,
summary?
no, actually, I don't think none of this will appear in the warrant,
Okay.
but it will, the only thing that's gonna appear in the warrant is just the transfer.
Okay.
But this will allow the board of selectmen and advisory in their deliberations on the warrant article to say, we have a policy governing
Mhm.
this money, so, but no, this won't appear in the
The
warrant.
whole text will.
Yeah. This is, I don't even know where this appears publicly,
Mhm.
except through a public records request.
Yeah.
In Chris's policy manual.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
there you go.
Because it's really a policy and then a procedure.
Yeah.
This is really two separate.
Yeah, you're right. But the board of selectmen reserve policies are not that clean.
Okay.
That's all I got.
All right, and as I said, I had an email with, the senator, trying to think if there was something else. Oh, Louise, John, and I went to last week's special advisory meeting that didn't happen,
No.
so, there's another one tomorrow
We
night.
get a do-over.
Yeah, yeah, do-over, exactly, but tomorrow night is a regularly scheduled meeting, so hopefully they will know they have a quorum before we enter the room.
There's a full agenda.
Yeah. Yeah, well, kind of
As
full.
full as.
Kind of full. Okay, so we can move on then to approval of minutes for August 24th.
That's it, that's Till's
The crowd leaves as soon as we announce this one. Okay, my only comment was on the last page.
August 24th?
Yeah, sorry, August 24th. The last page, this is the first of 3 scheduled meetings in September. Mrs. Dugan met with Chris Senior today about the special education reserve policy. Should it say stabilization
Yes.
instead of reserve?
Good one.
And that was the only thing that I caught, so if anybody else has any.
The only, thing that I caught, Barb, you were at that meeting.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I actually wasn't here, I was late at roll call.
Okay.
And then when we came back in, I was also not in the room, so, cause I looked at it too, and I'm like, hold on, I was here, but I
Okay.
went through it.
She wasn't in some votes because she had
Yeah.
left.
Okay, gotcha. All right, sorry.
Yeah, I think I was in Louise's office.
I
But yes, no, you're right.
Okay.
It
Okay.
read a little funny, like how am I voting, but I'm not.
Okay.
Not
I have one comment on page 1, under bus maintenance log. It says, Mr. Tuttley stated all the buses have passed inspections and have a sticker, and then it says the school bus safety inspections, which happen twice a year, will happen tomorrow. So we're talking about 2 different kinds of inspections, so
Yeah,
we
right.
should say have passed mass state inspections and have a sticker. I'm assuming that's what it was, the standard, emissions.
That's what it
test.
was.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's it.
okay. So do I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 24th, 2016? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And next are the minutes for Wednesday, what?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Wednesday, September 7th.
This is one on page 1, under induction program, it says, just about almost all the way down, Mary Buchanan was present as well and discussed special needs, should be special education needs. Contact information.
I had just quick edit on, page 2, under school committee comments and communications, the update on the SPED stabilization. Second sentence, I would strike, they started, and I would say the first project, the first agenda item will be to review the special education, policy. And I guess we should insert stabilization there again. And then in the fourth sentence that begins, Mrs. Dugan stated
other option, 13E, for special education, I would insert stabilization funds under this bill. Is that-
Okay, anything else? No? Okay, then could I have a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, September 7th, 2016?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we are up to date. Thank you so much, Tracy. Okay. Follow-up and updates.
The last list I sent out was, September 11th, so I don't know if anybody has any follow-ups for me. I'm out of color ink, so I can't even see. I can't even see what I'm updating anymore.
Under August 10, C, that has been,
Yeah.
that's been completed.
Oh, completed.
Yep. I presume that E, Louise, which is a letter to Osgood parents about price increase on lunch.
That's done.
It's done,
That was
it's
done,
completed,
yeah.
yeah.
I don't have my list.
Yeah.
No complaints.
And then,
None.
believe me, nobody's complaining over 25 cents when you don't have, lunch materials.
They're too busy.
Exactly.
July 13th, Superintendent Demus to follow up with Mark Kelly, read list of repairs at Osgood.
Done.
That's done.
I think that also shows up somewhere else.
Yeah, I think I saw it too.
I think the
I
other-
didn't have my pencil in my hand when I read it. I was standing at the kitchen counter trying to eat something.
One was going through the building, the other was the playground, I believe.
Yeah.
There were a couple comments made in May before you joined us, Louise, about the parent year-end survey that Carolyn was doing for the first time. I don't know if the committee still wants to see a copy of that.
I'm not sure it was sent out as such. I don't have a copy.
Okay.
I can go back to Carolyn and ask her again. I know that she surveys. I don't know what that looks like.
Yeah. The conversation was in the context of the school improvement plans,
Right.
where the other building principals at Osgood and Deer Hill send out that survey monkey, and Carolyn hadn't done it in years past because she'd been surveying people on other things, and she was like, they've got fatigue. So this year was the first year where her intent was to do a broad customer service survey.
Would you like me to check it?
Yeah, that'd be
Yes,
awesome,
please.
just so we can.
You can take
Check
it off the list or
Yeah.
ask for it.
And under August 24th, Superintendent Demus to send Christine a copy of our policy DN, disposal of surplus equipment. Did we do that?
Mental block.
Yeah.
I
It was
can
a-
do it again.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And,
That's a simple, get it off the list kind of thing.
We're slowly pushing Chris towards having a policy binder. It's so much fun.
I think I did that. I think I did give it to him, but I'll do it again.
Okay.
If you could just let me know,
Oh,
I'll take it off the list.
One thing I did forget to after we're done with this, I did forget to report one meeting that Louise and I went to. So we'll go back. Many of the items from September 7th are still in progress, so.
The fact that we're back down to 2 pages on policies is
Yeah,
really.
that's a good thing.
We do
I was
our
looking for,
homework.
I was looking for the 3rd page.
One item was coordinating presentation of strategic plan with the town manager and board of selectmen, and Tracy had actually asked me at the beginning
I sent
of the
Kevin
meeting.
a meeting today. I sent him a meeting.
You sent him a
It's
meeting
10 o'clock.
today.
I don't remember anymore. Kevin McCarthy, an email today asking to be on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen, but.
For
27th.
Oh, okay, so that's the answer to the question.
Okay, cause I'm gonna meet with them tomorrow and do the
Yes.
And what is it for, like, what, do you want me to
Strategic
agenda?
plan and technology plan,
Okay,
to present the executive summaries for both.
okay, so I'll make sure it's on that.
Did you want me to do a separate presentation to the advisory as well?
Yeah.
Okay, there it is.
I think if we wanted, we could send out an email saying that we are presenting it and.
If they wanna show
If
it.
they wanna,
If
what,
they'd
they
like
wanna
to,
come to
yeah,
board.
if they'd like to
I
attend.
could give them a handout of both tomorrow if you like, if that covers it. But we'll invite them to the presentation.
I think we invite them to the
Yeah.
presentation on
Yes.
Tuesday, and you're gonna be there anyway.
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
nice.
And there's usually someone from advisory there,
Okay.
so if, I think that that's good.
And if it's all right with you, it will be the executive summary and
Yes.
it's
Yes.
Ms.
Yeah.
Cumberson to do the
Yep.
whole.
That will be to them liking.
Yeah, on February 3rd, 2016, I'm gonna take this off the list, because there are no videos going up on the town website for
Yeah.
anybody. And I just don't have the heart to ask
To keep asking.
our IT people, to jump on one more thing.
They would do it.
I know that, I will, but in a casual kind way. But I'm gonna take this off the list.
It will, this is gonna be our continuing battle.
Yeah, our meeting minutes are all up. Jennifer Saritas followed up with the town clerk and got them all posted, and so they're as up to date on the town website as they are on the school website.
Did you say to remove the June 1st one? Did I miss that?
June 1st.
This is due to,
Oh, we
requested
didn't-
the restraint
no.
policy be included.
Did the new policy go in the Osgood parent student handbook?
The restraint policy.
I think it should be in all of them, right? But
It's definitely in the high school one, I know.
yeah, I can't remember now.
I
I
think
feel like it's in the
original as
Osgood,
well.
I don't know for sure. Okay, I'll double. Hold off on that one.
The one from November 18th, 2015, about the open door policy at the schools.
Yeah.
Can that come
Come
off,
off, yeah.
covered in, we've
Covered.
discussed that in the
Which
security.
one is that?
From 2015, I don't know what the backstory behind this, particular item is, but November 18th, 2015, a review of the open door policy at the schools,
Yes.
Oh, I know what it is.
Yeah.
and security procedures have been reviewed with the
Yeah.
faculty in
So
light
that'll
of
come off.
security.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Any other changes? So again, to back up, Louise and I went and met with the town manager and the chairperson of the Board of Selectmen, Kevin McCarthy, and discussed the state of the schools and had a nice conversation about the phones and how that could be corrected, and so we are aiming at a once-a-month meeting to just kind of go through what's on our plate and what's on theirs, so.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, that's
No
right.
problem.
So what is on their plate? That was kind of interesting. I saw on Facebook, social media, that some of the selectmen and Chris and Sam Wakeman went to Harwichport
Yes.
and to do
Tour.
for a tour and to see how the town of Harwich revitalized their harbor district and made it, a thriving, viable. I forget, it's a statistically significant fishing fleet, and
They're benchmarking, it's catching.
I've had a discussion with the leadership about the website. I went on the district website as a community member and realized there were many things that needed some tweaking, changing. I made some changes. I made myself the superintendent.
Oh, there you go.
Police, the interim
Wow.
superintendent on
Yeah,
that website.
excellent.
I also changed the calendar, so it's now one click. as opposed to, there were 2 calendars on the website. I really wanted to see what the PSO parents were saying about it being laborious to maneuver. And then I realized going on all of the websites that it isn't a consistency to access and ease. So I did speak to the leadership about possibly approaching you as asking to put together a stipend for someone to coordinate all of those and keep them up to date, make contact with the director of special needs, with the assistant superintendent, the principals and so on, and coordinate along with Chris Senior at our meeting had said that he was looking for someone to also work on their website. So it would be a coordination, communication with that person, so that anyone working on a website that was community or school would be able to navigate in the same manner. Calendars would be in the same place, community news would be in the same order, and those kinds of things. And the pictures would not be 2 years old. So the principals or anyone in the school would take pictures of any function and so on, but it would be centralized with this person. I'm not sure what that would look like. I'm not sure what the stipend would be either. But I just wanted to update you that I will research that. There are a few schools who do that as a stipend to a teacher who's interested in that kind of technology, and I think we would have some. So
The website, the Facebook page, social media.
Right, we did talk about the Facebook page and what should go on it, or is it dating itself as a Facebook page, and that would be something of another discussion. Someone who could also put together a tweet as it should be, all of those finite things. It was an awakening to look at that website, and
Thank you for taking the time to do that, because it's been frustrating forever, but we all were under the impression that once we had the new website, a year or so ago, that things would be much better, and it's still a challenge.
it's just very difficult having several people maintain websites that we agreed would look a certain way, but even maintaining it. And Jennifer would have been the one added to everything else that she's doing to do a website. It's easier if someone does it customarily and just routinely. That's where we are, but I did want to update you on that.
Just in terms of the websites too, I was going through one of the school's websites and just I'm just wondering, so many teachers still have links to Weebly's. I mean, is it realistic in terms of their time and training for them to shift over to the new websites by the end of the year? Because I was actually really surprised with the number of, here's my Weebly, like very,
We agreed that they could keep, we paid for the license last year. I think we have to remind them that we no longer hold that license, that they are personally responsible. But we also agreed when we contracted with school buyers that the teachers who had already developed these Weeblys and had spent so much time developing them would be allowed to link them as long as they were on the school website. So I really don't want to renege on that with them.
right, so but they have to pay for their.
They'll have to pay for
They will have to
themselves.
pay.
So they're
It's
either
free
buy
to a
for it or
certain
they-
extent, I think. I don't know the
And an
logistics.
individual license probably is not prohibitive.
It's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Given the amount of money they spend on their classrooms, I'm sure
Sure,
it's not.
okay, I just wanted to check in, I mean, I know, like, I'm a late adapter. Girl at Barnes and Noble just said, oh my gosh, is that an iPhone 4? My grandma has one of those.
Who said that? The woman at Barnes and Noble said that?
She was like, 18, so it was okay, I laughed. But, I was like, yep, here it is. But I was just, I can feel sympathy for someone who's like, oh God, I don't wanna, it's not my comfort zone to
That's too
shift
close.
into some new website. And plus, you have a billion other things to do, so I can understand that redesigning your website might not be the top of your list.
Who is maintaining each school's website now?
I believe it's the assistant, Carrie does much of the technology at the middle school, the principals of the other schools. And I'm not sure who does the district one. I know that Jennifer posts to the district.
Yeah.
There is no one assigned to that.
I just
And
learned how to do it, so.
So Sue does our district website.
Sue can do it.
I just learned yesterday. I got access
Oh, you
yesterday,
got
so.
Just
It's
I
like
can
just
maneuver and change things. I'm knowledgeable about that and
Okay.
can, edit and move. I just don't have the cache of photos and those kinds of things. What I found
Nor
was
should
that
the
the
superintendent be
menu-
doing
Yeah,
artistic
thank you.
ones.
I played Saturday morning.
Unless you
and-
really wanted to and loved that stuff.
Well, it was
But,
better than
you know,
emails I was
why-
getting on Saturday morning, so. The menus should appear the same, the teacher websites should be at the bottom of that list. So it would be a matter of looking at all of those, and it's not so much as creating websites as maintaining the consistency among them. And that doesn't mean that the principals could not add their recent letters, but I also found that on the websites, there were dated messages.
Right.
I hope you enjoy your holiday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's my question is there a way to sort of address the immediate need of updating the information contained on the websites for each individual school, and then the sort of long-term, bigger goal of making them all kind of come together under a common template and
I guess
I think we
unifying
can do
them a little
both. I
bit?
think if the person in charge of maintaining them can access that material, give me your newsletter, I'll put it on, or find that, I think that will take care of itself. It's a matter of, I need to compose my letter, and then I need to go to my website, and do I want to put a edit there, or do I want to change it? It becomes a larger project.
Right.
Websites are quickly composed and sent on Blackboard and so on. This would be someone, I'll send it to you, please do it. Mary was telling me it took her hours to put in the information and format what she wanted on the website for student services, that kind of thing. Yet she had all the material on her desktop. So it's a try it. I just want to see if someone can put all of those together and make it user-friendly. I realized that it's not. It was clicking on a calendar and then getting to one calendar to find out the other calendar and to find out where the policies were here, and they were right. It just isn't working.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It definitely could be fine-tuned a little bit. I just
Right.
think the content that's, as it sits today, should be accurate as well.
So I will send that out.
I mean,
And they
literally
should
the
be
first three
reminded
tabs.
to keep it current.
Yeah.
I will do that.
Okay. So moving right along, under topics not reasonably anticipated by the chairman 48 hours in advance of the meeting, I would like to, a motion to move into executive session, and we will try and keep it brief, for purpose number 3, to discuss strategy re-collective bargaining with union personnel, and to discuss strategy re-possible litigation. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
And, okay, I heard Ellen first. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, roll call, please.
I, Barbara Steffen.
I can do them.
I, Gina Stino.
I, Eleanor. I, Amanda Zani.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you.
I hope you enjoyed your time with us.
Last.
This coffee maker, oh my God.
Bring back memories.
Yeah, it does, it brings back a lot of memories.
And we will return to open session, just to adjourn.
Thank you, Jim.
So can we disconnect all of this? And,
Let's do this.